The smell of disinfectant hadn't yet dissipated when Lin Ruo abruptly opened his eyes in his leather office chair. The touch on his fingertips was unbelievably delicate, not the rough fingertips he'd known for the past 30 years, but smooth skin with a faint scent of rose hand cream. He instinctively raised his hand, and the sight of a slender arm that suddenly appeared in his vision made his breath catch in his throat. It was a pair of sleek arms, almost translucent white, and the Patek Philippe Starry Night watch on his wrist reflected shimmering light with each movement. The date clearly displayed as June 18, 2015. A sharp pain suddenly shot through his temple, and countless fragments of memories that weren't his own flooded back. President of a listed company, graduate of a prestigious university, business legend. These labels were branded into his mind like a hot iron, but what chilled him to the bone was the face reflected in the mirror. A woman in a burgundy velvet suit stood in the full-length mirror embedded in the office wall. She was about 35 or 36 years old, her eyes and brows carrying the languid sharpness unique to mature women. Her nose was high and straight, her lips sharply defined, painted a vintage brick red lipstick. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating her voluptuous figure. A glimpse of black stockings peeked from beneath her skirt, encasing her shapely calves. The crisp, melodious sound of her high heels clicking on the floor proclaimed her identity. Lin Ruoxue, the head of a multi-billion-dollar tech company. Lin Ruo. No, she should be called Lin Ruoxue now. Stumbled back half a step, bumping into the cold glass. 3 days ago, he was still a shut-in in his rented room, eating instant noodles, his greatest hobby being reading urban fantasy novels on his phone. One of the books, 1 pregnancy, 6 babies. My husband is a billionaire tycoon, kept him engrossed for half a year. The female supporting character was also named Lin Ruoxue, a typical plot device villain. 2.5 years ago, she slept with the male lead, had a one-night stand, unexpectedly became pregnant with sextuplets, gave birth, and disappeared. In the end, she was thoroughly humiliated by the male lead, who possessed a system, and suffered a disgraceful end. Although the plot was absurd, that's how the novel was written. He never imagined that he would transmigrate into this book, becoming the scumbag female he had complained about countless times. Ring ring. The internal phone on his desk suddenly rang, and the secretary's sweet voice came through. President Lin, a Mr. Su Ming downstairs with several children wants to see you. He says he's your friend. Lin Ruoxue's heart clenched at Su Ming. This name exploded in his mind like a thunderbolt. The male protagonist of the book, the pure-hearted young man with a super-rich dad system. According to the plot, this is precisely the moment when Su Ming, desperate and with no other options, comes knocking on their door with his sextuplets that in her past life. Lin Ruoxue scoffed at them, not only kicking them out, but also threatening to sue them for extortion, completely pushing the male protagonist to the opposite side. But now, this body belongs to Lin Ruo, who has thoroughly read the entire story. She took a deep breath and raised her hand to touch her burning cheeks. The beautiful woman in the mirror reflected a complex mix of emotions, shock, panic, but mostly a strange excitement. A seasoned online novel reader. She knew Su Ming's potential better than anyone. Once he bound himself to the system and completed the childcare tasks, he could unlock billions in assets, a private jet, a top-tier mansion. Lin Ruoxue in the book, precisely because she missed this golden opportunity, ended up with a tragic fate. Let them come up, she said in a deep voice into the phone, her voice possessing the unique magnetism of a mature woman, completely different from the rough, nerdy voice she remembered. As she adjusted her suit collar, her fingertips inadvertently brushed against the delicate skin of her collarbone, and she couldn't help but marvel once again at the perfection of this body. The velvet fabric clung to her body, outlining her full curves. The friction between the black stockings and her skin created a subtle tactile sensation. The mature woman's aura, cultivated over 36 years of life experience, flowed around her, possessing both the authority of a leader and a heart-pounding sensuality. The elevator dinged as it reached the top floor. Lin Ruoxue stood up, her high heels clicking firmly on the marble floor. The moment the office door opened, 6 adorable little children looked up in unison. Then, a young man in a white t-shirt and jeans appeared in the doorway. He looked to be in his early 20s, his features as clear as the sky after rain, a pair of black-rimmed glasses perched on his nose, and his cheeks slightly flushed with nervousness. Sunlight streamed through the glass window behind him, gilding the ends of his hair. He was the spitting image of Su Ming, the pure and innocent young man described in books. Miss Lin. Su Ming's voice trembled with a touch of awkwardness as he nudged the children forward. These are our children. The 6 little ones timidly peeked out, 3 boys and 3 girls, looking almost identical, all with large eyes and high noses, resembling miniature versions of Su Ming. One of the little girls, with pigtails, suddenly pointed at Lin Ruoxue and called out in a childish voice, "Mommy." Lin Ruoxue's heart skipped a beat. In her past life, she had never experienced the warmth of family. Her parents died early, and she struggled alone in a big city, never even having a romantic relationship. But looking at these 6 soft, cuddly little children before her, she suddenly felt an inexplicable sense of warmth. Especially the little girl who called her mommy. Her round eyes full of curiosity reminded her of Sun Yan, the most clingy of the sextuplets described in the book. Su Ming was clearly taken aback by the children's sudden outburst. His face flushed instantly, and he hurriedly explained, "I'm sorry, Miss Lin. The children are just being silly. It's all right." Lin Ruoxue interrupted him, taking 2 steps forward. The sound of her high heels on the ground made the children instinctively shrink back, yet they couldn't help but steal glances at her. She noticed Su Ming's faded jeans and the children's slightly worn clothes, and understood. At this time, the male protagonist was still living in an urban village, barely supporting his 6 children with part-time jobs. Although the system was unlocked, the rewards were still rather meager. Her gaze fell on Su Ming's slightly reddened eyes, and she suddenly recalled a detail from the book. To raise money for his child's medical expenses, Su Ming had just donated blood yesterday and walked for 2 hours to get to the company today. "Sit down." Lin Ruoxue gestured to the sofa, then turned and poured 7 glasses of warm water. As she handed the water cups to the children, the youngest boy timidly said, "Thank you, pretty auntie," which made her smile involuntarily. The beautiful woman in the mirror, always cold and aloof, now had a gentle ripple in her eyes. Lin Ruoxue suddenly realized that she didn't seem to reject this identity. Being Lin Ruoxue meant possessing immeasurable wealth and power, and meeting Su Ming and these 6 children might be an opportunity given to her by fate. She looked at Su Ming, noticing his clenched fists and the thin layer of sweat on his forehead, and suddenly asked, "What are the children's names?" Su Ming hesitated for a moment, then quickly gave them their names. Eldest, Su Chun; second, Su Yu; third, Su Nian; fourth, Su Rui; fifth, Su Ya; sixth, Su Zhe. "Very nice names." Lin Ruoxue nodded, her fingertips unconsciously tracing the rim of her glass. "I remember, 2.5 years ago at the Zenukian Hotel." Su Ming's face turned deathly pale, as if someone had struck a sore spot. He abruptly stood up. "Miss Lin, I'm not here to bother you. I just want the children to see their mother. They cry for their mother every night." His voice choked with emotion, and the 6 children seemed to sense their father's emotions, their eyes also reddening. The third child, Su Nian, tugged at Su Ming's sleeve and whispered, "Daddy, don't cry. Nian doesn't want mommy anymore." Lin Ruoxue's heart felt like it had been pricked by a needle. She put down her glass and walked to Su Ming. Her high heels were significantly higher than his sneakers, and by slightly lowering her head, she could see his trembling eyelashes. This 20-year-old boy, who should be enjoying his youth on campus, instead had to shoulder the burden of raising 6 children alone. "Who said I don't want my mother anymore?" Lin Ruoxue's voice softened considerably. She reached out and gently stroked Su Nian's head, the soft, fine hair beneath her fingers. "From today onwards, Mom won't leave." Su Ming suddenly looked up, his eyes wide like saucers. "Miss Lin, What did you say? Lin Ruoxue looked at a shocked expression and suddenly smiled. When the beautiful woman in the mirror smiled, faint wrinkles appeared at the corners of her eyes, but this did not diminish her charm. Instead, it added a touch of mature allure. Her voluptuous figure was shapely in a velvet suit. Her legs, outlined in black stockings, gleamed delicately in the sunlight, and she exuded a captivating, mature woman's aura. But at this moment, her eyes were incredibly serious. I said, I'll take care of the children with you. Are you kidding? Why would she leave behind a male lead with a system and 6 adorable kids who bring her own wealth? Was she going to repeat her past mistakes and become a lonely bachelor? Lin Ruoxue mentally calculated that as long as she built a good relationship, she could just lie back and become a rich woman. That was the right way for a transmigrated to live. Su Ming was still in a daze, but the 6 children seemed to understand her words, rushing over and hugging her legs in unison. Their soft little hands gripped her black stockings, calling out mama in their sweet, childlike voices, their warm breath falling on her knees. Lin Ruoxue looked down at the little bundles of joy clinging to her legs and suddenly felt that this transmigration wasn't so bad after all. She raised her hand and, for the first time, took Su Ming's hand. His hands were large and rough, calloused from years of housework, a stark contrast to her delicate palms. Su Ming. She looked up, meeting his shocked gaze, a meaningful smile playing on her lips. I look forward to your guidance in the future. A brief silence fell over the office as Lin Ruoxue finished speaking. Su Ming remained stunned, his mouth slightly agape, seemingly still reeling from the news that mommy isn't leaving. The 6 little ones, however, reacted quickly. The youngest, Sun Yan, was the first to release her grip on Su Ming's clothes, toddling towards Lin Ruoxue with her short legs. She rubbed her soft face against Lin Ruoxue's skirt, repeating in her sweet, childish voice, Mommy won't go. Mommy won't go. Seeing this, the other 5 children followed suit, rushing over one after another like little cannonballs, instantly surrounding Lin Ruoxue. Their little hands gripped her skirt and stockings tightly, some even hugging her legs, their chubby faces tilted up, their eyes sparkling as they looked at her, as if afraid she would disappear at any moment. Lin Ruoxue was somewhat overwhelmed by this sudden enthusiasm. As someone who had just transitioned from a stay-at-home guy to a mature female CEO, how could she possibly handle such a situation? She instinctively tried to back away, but the children clung to her tightly, making it impossible to move. The faint milky scent of the children mingled with the fragrance of her own rose hand cream, creating a wonderfully warm aroma. All right, kids, let go of mommy, okay? Lin Ruoxue tried to make her voice as gentle as possible. She carefully raised her hand, wanting to touch the children's heads, but was afraid of accidentally hurting them, so her movements were somewhat stiff. Su Ming finally snapped out of his daze and quickly stepped forward, trying to pull the children away. Nian Nian, Shun Shun, come here, stop bothering Miss Lin. No, I want mommy. Su Nian pouted, not letting go but hugging even tighter. The other children echoed her, and for a moment, the office was filled with the children's whining and pleading. Watching this scene unfold before her, Lin Ruoxue felt a surge of warmth in her heart. Having been accustomed to loneliness in her past life, she had never experienced such a feeling of being relied upon. She took a deep breath, suppressing her inner turmoil, and smiled at Su Ming. It's okay, let them hold you. She tried bending down, gently stroking Su Chen's head, who was closest to her. The little guy's hair was soft, like cotton candy. Su Chen was initially a little shy, shrinking his neck slightly, but after feeling Lin Ruoxue's gentle touch, he looked up at her with his clear, large eyes and softly called out, Mommy. That one mommy melted Lin Ruoxue's heart. She couldn't help but smile, the fine lines at the corners of her eyes softening considerably. Yes, mommy's here. Just then, Lin Ruoxue's phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID. It was her driver, Lao Zhang. She answered the phone, her voice possessing a mature, magnetic quality, and said, Old Zhang, drive to the company gate. Yes, I need to take a few people home. After hanging up, she said to Su Ming, why don't you and the kids come home with me? Staying in the office all the time isn't a good solution. Su Ming hesitated for a moment, then said somewhat tentatively, isn't that a bit inappropriate? Will it bother you? No. Lin Ruoxue shook her head. The house is spacious, which gives the children a place to play. She paused, then added, besides, we also need to talk about the children. Su Ming thought about it and agreed with Lin Ruoxue's point, so he nodded. Well, okay, thank you, Ms. Lin. Just call me Ruoxue, Lin Ruoxue said with a smile. Afterward, Lin Ruoxue had her secretary come in, briefly explain some company matters, and then left the office with Su Ming and the 6 children. In the elevator, the space was somewhat cramped. The 6 children huddled together, curiously examining the elevator buttons and mirrors. Su Yan pointed to Lin Ruoxue in the mirror and said to Suya beside her, Sister, look, Mom is so beautiful. Suya nodded and whispered, Yes, Mom is like a fairy. Hearing the children's conversation, Lin Ruoxue's face flushed slightly. She secretly glanced at Su Ming and found him also looking at himself in the mirror, a shy smile on his face. When they arrived at the company building, driver Lao Zhang had already parked the car at the entrance. It was a black Rolls-Royce Phantom, gleaming in the sunlight. The children, seeing such a luxurious car, all looked astonished, their eyes wide. Su Chen tugged at Su Ming's sleeve and whispered, Dad, what kind of car is this? It's so beautiful. Su Ming was also a little flustered. He had never seen such an expensive car in his life. He smiled awkwardly and said to the children, This is Miss Lin's car. Lin Ruoxue opened the car door and said to the children, Come on, kids, get in. The children looked at each other, hesitant to move. Finally, Sun Yan, encouraged by Lin Ruoxue, was the first to climb into the car. Seeing this, the other children followed suit. The car was spacious, and the seats were soft and comfortable. The children curiously touched this and that, excitedly whispering among themselves. Lin Ruoxue and Su Ming sat in the front. The car slowly started moving. Lin Ruoxue looked at the street scenes rushing past the window, her mind filled with countless thoughts. She knew that from today onwards, her life would be completely changed. She was no longer the lonely, reclusive Lin Ruo, but Lin Ruoxue, a mother of 6, and Su Ming's. She didn't yet know how to define her relationship with Su Ming. What bothered her even more was that her appearance had completely reversed the original plot. She had no idea what the future held, or what tasks Su Ming's system would issue. Just then, a mechanical voice suddenly sounded in Su Ming's mind. Ding. Newbie task issued. First family dinner. Task requirements. Enjoy dinner with a mother and 6 children. Task reward. 100,000 renminbi in cash, a comfortable villa. He gripped his phone tightly, his knuckles turning white, and fine beads of sweat even appeared on his forehead. This voice had appeared occasionally since the child's birth. Each completed task brought unexpected small rewards to supplement the family income, but he had never mentioned it to anyone. This reward was unexpectedly generous. Inviting Lin Ruoxue to dinner was something he found incredibly difficult to say, given the awkward and delicate nature of their relationship. He stole a glance at Lin Ruoxue beside him, noticing her gazing out the window, her profile softened by the light and shadow. His lips moved, but he ultimately swallowed his words. Lin Ruoxue had already noticed his series of subtle movements out of the corner of her eye, from gripping her phone tightly to her reddened ears, to his hesitant expression. She wondered to herself, what's on his mind? Has the system activated again? But the situation has changed. Who knows what the system will make him do? She suppressed her curiosity, maintaining her gaze out the window, and didn't ask anything. The silence in the carriage was broken by the children's laughter, but it did nothing to ease Su Ming's tension. He repeatedly rubbed his fingers on his knees, the system notification in his mind sounding like a death knell. Mission limited to 2 hours. Please complete as soon as possible. Ruoxue. Su Ming finally couldn't hold back any longer, his voice trembling with nervousness. Are you free tonight? Tonight? I'd like to invite you and the children to dinner. After saying this, he seemed to have exhausted all his strength. His cheeks were flushed red, and his eyes darted away in a flustered manner. Lin Ruoxue turned her head, a perfectly timed look of surprise on her face, which quickly softened into a gentle smile. Sure, I didn't want to eat alone either. Zhang at home is a good cook, so why don't we eat at my place? It'll make the children feel more comfortable. Su Ming hadn't expected her to agree so readily. He hesitated for a moment before nodding repeatedly. Okay, whatever you say. He breathed a huge sigh of relief. Thankfully, she hadn't noticed anything amiss. Lin Ruoxue looked at his relieved expression, a hint of doubt flashing in her eyes. It's just an invitation to dinner. Why is he so nervous? Could this meal hold some special meaning? She didn't dwell on it. She figured things would work themselves out. She'd just follow Su Ming's lead. The car soon arrived at Lin Ruoxue's house. It was a luxurious villa in the city center, with a large grounds area and a beautiful garden. The children got out of the car and exclaimed excitedly at the sight of the huge house. They ran around in the yard, chasing butterflies, their laughter as clear as silver bells. Lin Ruoxue felt a warmth in her heart watching the children's happy faces. She said to Su Ming, let's go inside first. I'll have Zhang prepare dinner. Su Ming nodded and followed Lin Ruoxue into the villa. The villa's interior was luxurious yet warm, with top-brand furniture. Su Ming was somewhat dazzled by the sights. He walked carefully, afraid of accidentally breaking something. Lin Ruoxue led Su Ming to the living room and sat him down. Then she called Zhang over, saying, Zhang, prepare more dishes for dinner, something suitable for the children, something light. Also, make sweet and sour pork ribs and scrambled eggs with tomatoes. The children should like those. Yes, Miss Lin, Zhang replied respectfully. Afterward, Lin Ruoxue said to Su Ming, please sit here for a while. I'll go upstairs to check on the children's rooms. Okay. Su Ming nodded, and only after Lin Ruoxue went upstairs did he secretly breathe a sigh of relief. The system notification popped up in his mind again. Host detected to be in a pleasant family environment and in a good mood. Reward, 100 points. Points can be used to redeem items in the system shop. He looked around at the unfamiliar yet luxurious surroundings, his heart filled with mixed emotions. Although he didn't understand why Lin Ruoxue had suddenly changed her attitude, he was already very grateful that the children could have a good life. Lin Ruoxue quickly came downstairs. She said to Su Ming, I've prepared the children's rooms. They're full of toys and picture books. They should like them. Su Ming said gratefully. Thank you, Ruoxue. You've thought of everything. You're welcome. Lin Ruoxue smiled. We're family. Hearing the words family, Su Ming's face flushed slightly, and his heart skipped a beat. He stole a glance at Lin Ruoxue and found her smiling at him, a gentle and captivating smile that stirred something within him. Dinner was quickly prepared. The table was laden with various dishes, sweet and sour pork ribs and scrambled eggs with tomatoes, favorites for the children, as well as braised pork belly and steamed fish, suitable for adults. The 6 children sat in their high chairs, enjoying their meal immensely. Sun Yan, holding a small spoon, clumsily fed herself some sweet and sour pork ribs, her lips smeared with sauce, making her look like a little kitten. Seeing this, Lin Ruoxue took a tissue and gently wiped her mouth. Sun Yan smiled sweetly at Lin Ruoxue. Thank you, Mom. You're welcome. Lin Ruoxue replied with a smile. Su Ming watched the heartwarming scene unfold before him, his heart filled with happiness. He felt this was the most delicious meal he had ever eaten. Halfway through the meal, the system notification in his mind rang again. Ding. Mission, first family dinner completed. Rewards had been sent to the host's bank card and system space. He discreetly touched his phone in his pocket, his fingertips trembling slightly, but he said nothing. He simply placed a piece of her favorite steamed fish on Lin Ruoxue's plate. Ruoxue, try this, it tastes good. Lin Ruoxue looked at the fish in her bowl, picked it up, tasted it, and nodded. It really is delicious. Zhang Ma's cooking is getting better and better. She was still wondering what was so special about this meal that had made Su Ming so nervous earlier. After dinner, Lin Ruoxue suggested with a smile, tomorrow's the weekend. I saw a nice villa area nearby. The environment is great, perfect for the children. Shall we go check it out? Su Ming's heart skipped a beat. He wondered if the villa the system reward had given him was nearby. He immediately nodded in agreement. Okay. That evening, after the children had bathed, they lay quietly in bed. Lin Ruoxue told them a bedtime story, and the children quickly drifted off to sleep. Lin Ruoxue and Su Ming sat in the living room, looking at the moonlight outside the window, neither of them speaking. After a while, Su Ming spoke first. Ruoxue, thank you. Thank me for what? Lin Ruoxue asked. Thank you for taking me and the children in, Su Ming said sincerely. If it weren't for you, I don't know what we'd be like now. Lin Ruoxue smiled. I've said it before, we're family, and I believe in you. You'll definitely be a good father. Su Ming looked at Lin Ruoxue, his eyes resolute, and said, I definitely will. As the morning sunlight streamed through the sheer curtains into the living room, Lin Ruoxue was already dressed. A champagne-colored silk dress accentuated her mature, voluptuous figure. The perfectly placed pleats at the neckline subtly concealed her delicate collarbones, and the skirt slid up to her thigh, revealing her legs encased in sheer, flesh-colored stockings that gleamed with a delicate sheen. She stood before the full-length mirror, combing her long hair. The slightly curled waves cascaded over her shoulders, softening her otherwise aloof face with a touch of allure. She possessed both the aloofness of a woman in a position of power and the mature charm of a seasoned woman. The cheerful chatter of children drifted up from downstairs. A slight smile played on Lin Ruoxue's lips as she descended the stairs in her 7-centimeter nude heels. In the living room, Su Ming was frantically tying the shoelaces of his 6 little ones. His white t-shirt was wrinkled from Sun Yan's grip, and his jeans still had milk stains from last night's spilled milk on the knees, clashing with the luxurious surroundings, yet possessing a strange, down-to-earth charm. Daddy's clumsy. Nian Nian can do it herself. The little girl with pigtails pouted, her chubby little hands struggling to hold the shoelaces, her palms damp with a light sheen of sweat. Lin Ruoxue walked over and knelt down, her cool fingertips gently parting the child's little hands, and in a few quick movements, she tied a pretty bow. Nian Nian is so clever, she can put on her shoes by herself now. Her breath brushed against the child's ear, carrying a faint scent of iris. Sun Yan blushed instantly and snuggled closer to her. Su Ming looked at her downcast eyes, the morning light casting soft shadows on her long eyelashes. The skin exposed at the neckline of her dress was dazzlingly white. His Adam's apple bobbed involuntarily, and he hurriedly looked away. Everything's ready. We can go now. As soon as the van left the villa area, a system notification sounded in Su Ming's mind. Ding. Random task triggered. Choose a toy for each of the 6 children. Task reward. 6 child safety seats, 500 points. He gripped the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles turning white. He had spent half the night checking the bank app after the 100,000 yuan had arrived in his account yesterday, and now his heart was pounding uncontrollably again. How could he bring up buying toys? He stole a glance at Lin Ruoxue in the passenger seat. She was looking out the window, sunlight streaming through the window onto her shapely neck, her legs, encased in stockings, crossed, and the pearl anklet on her ankle swaying gently with her movements. Daddy, that bear is huge. Suze suddenly pointed to a giant doll in a toy store by the roadside and shouted. The other children immediately clung to the car windows, screaming, I want a robot. I want a talking doll. Su Ming's forehead was sweating as he pondered how to phrase his words, when he heard Lin Ruoxue's cool voice. There seems to be a toy store up ahead. Want to go in and take a look? As she turned her head, sunlight fell directly into her eyes, softening the sense of distance between them. It's the children's first time out with me. We should buy them some gifts. Wouldn't that be too expensive? Su Ming instinctively declined, but swallowed the rest of his words when he saw the children's bright eyes. Lin Ruoxue chuckled softly, tapping her fingertip lightly on her knee. Money spent on children is never considered an expense. The dazzling, multicolored lights of the toy store made everyone dizzy, and the 6 little ones scattered like wild horses. Sun Yin clung to a doll in a princess dress, refusing to let go. Su Chun held up a transformer toy, competing with Su Yu to see whose was stronger. Su Yu was captivated by the singing music box, squatting in front of the counter, unable to move. Lin Ruoxue followed leisurely behind, her high heels clicking silently on the carpet. She watched Su Ming being pulled around by the children, his white t-shirt soaked with sweat, yet he still patiently helped each child choose a toy. Suddenly, she realized this seemingly innocent young man wasn't so dull after all. This is suitable for Xiaozhe. She picked up a light-up dinosaur model and handed it to him. Suze immediately dropped his water gun and rushed over, hugging the model and rubbing it against her legs, calling out in his childish voice, "Mommy." As Lin Ruoxue lowered her head, her neckline was slightly open, revealing just enough to show the delicate hollow of her collarbone. Su Ming hurriedly turned his head away, his ears turning bright red. After paying the bill, Su Ming's hands were full of bags of various sizes, while Lin Ruoxue held the sleeping Sun Yin in her arms, the little girl's drool soaking the silk of her shoulder. Ding. Mission completed. Reward issued. As the system notification sounded, he secretly felt for the 6 car seat vouchers that had suddenly appeared in his pocket, an uncontrollable smile creeping onto his face. What's making you so happy? Lin Ruoxue noticed his silly grin and raised an eyebrow. And nothing. Su Ming hurriedly waved his hand. I just thought the kids were really happy today. Lin Ruoxue didn't press further, but watching him hum a tuneless little tune as he stuffed the toy box into the trunk, she had a pretty good idea. This silly boy, he's probably completed some kind of mission. She glanced down at Sun Yin, fast asleep in her arms. The little girl's hand was still tightly clutching her clothes, the warmth of her palm softening her heart. The van entered an unfamiliar villa district. Lin Ruoxue frowned slightly and turned to Su Ming. This isn't the road to the villa we talked about earlier. Su Ming tightened his grip on the steering wheel, his Adam's apple bobbing twice. Actually, I wanted to show you another place. As soon as he finished speaking, the cream-white villa, a system reward, came into view. Beneath its fairy tale-like pointed roof, a blue children's swimming pool shimmered in the sunlight. As soon as the car stopped, the 6 children jumped out like wild animals, screaming around the wooden slide in the yard. Lin Ruoxue stepped out of the car in her high heels, her gaze sweeping over the exquisite reliefs on the villa's exterior. Her fingertips unconsciously traced the crocodile skin handbag tucked into her arm. This place is quite nice. Whose property is it? Su Ming's ears instantly turned bright red. His fingers curled at his sides as he forced a smile and said, It's mine. Lin Ruoxue raised an eyebrow, scrutinizing him with interest. Yours? Yes. Su Ming nodded vigorously, his eyes darting around. A while ago, my elders left some money, thinking the children needed a bigger place, so they asked someone to buy this house. All the paperwork is complete, absolutely legal. He spoke more and more urgently, his voice trembling slightly, afraid of giving himself away. Lin Ruoxue looked at his tense profile, the sunlight casting the shadow of his eyelashes on the bridge of his nose, making him look like a flustered fawn. She knew perfectly well, this must be the reward for last night's dinner. In novels, the properties rewarded by the system are always in perfect condition, but the male protagonist always manages to come up with some lame excuse to cover it up. Oh, she deliberately dragged out her words, slowly walking towards the villa's gate, her champagne-colored skirt sweeping across the lawn. Left by an elder? I didn't know you had such an elder in your family. Su Ming's face flushed red, and he quickly followed, blocking her way, waving his hands erratically. It's a distant relative, the kind we don't usually keep in touch with, and suddenly, they left me an inheritance. I was very surprised. He was so flustered that sweat beaded on his forehead, even resorting to the old-fashioned excuse of distant relative. Lin Ruoxue looked at his earnest attempt to cover up his lie, and the smile in her eyes almost slipped out. This kid can't even lie properly. His ears are red as if they're about to bleed, yet he stubbornly tries to appear calm. She pushed him away and walked straight to the porch. Since it's your house, won't you invite me in? Please come in. Su Ming felt like he'd been granted a reprieve, frantically reaching for his keys in his pocket, but his fingers trembled so much he couldn't find them. In the yard, Su Chan was having a tree climbing contest with Su Yu, while Sun Yin, holding her new doll, chased butterflies towards the pool. Lin Ruoxue leaned against the carved railing, watching Su Ming clumsily put life rings on the children. His white t-shirt clung to his back in the wind, outlining his slender yet strong figure. Daddy, Mommy, come swimming. Suze shouted, raising his little arms, splashing water that wet Su Ming's trouser legs. When Su Ming turned around, he saw Lin Ruoxue smiling at him. The beautiful woman leaned against the railing, her posture languid and alluring. A corner of her champagne-colored dress billowed in the wind, revealing her jade-like legs clad in thin stockings, shimmering hazily in the sunlight. Her allure was undeniably mature, yet her eyes held a gentle smile, making his heart skip a beat. What are you laughing at? He asked, scratching his head, a little embarrassed. Laughing at how amazing you are, Lin Ruoxue said, her fingertips tracing the cool railing. You have such a nice house at such a young age. You'll have to treat the children well. Su Ming nodded emphatically, watching her retreating figure as she walked towards the pool. Suddenly, all those rewards seemed insignificant compared to the person before him. He touched the property deed in his pocket, secretly letting out a sigh of relief. Thankfully, he hadn't been found out. Lin Ruoxue heard his relieved sigh behind her, and the corners of her lips curved into a wider smile. This silly boy, he still doesn't know he's been seen through all along. She turned to look at the children playing in the water, sunlight streaming onto their wet little faces, making them look like a group of happy little angels. Perhaps this isn't so bad. Let him hold on to this little secret, and little by little, grow into a man capable of standing on his own. As dusk fell, the van drove back to Lin Ruoxue's villa. The 6 children were fast asleep in the back seat, clutching their new toys. Lin Ruoxue leaned against the passenger seat, her eyes closed, her long eyelashes casting soft shadows beneath her eyelids. Su Ming looked at her peaceful sleeping face, and a feeling of peace he had never experienced before suddenly filled his heart. The car had barely stopped when Lin Ruoxue opened her eyes, as if she had never slept. As she unbuckled her seatbelt, a strand of her hair brushed against Su Ming's hand, carrying a faint scent of iris. Let's move to the new villa tomorrow. It's more suitable for the children there. Su Ming hesitated for a moment, then nodded vigorously. Okay. Seeing his excited expression, Lin Ruoxue couldn't help but smile. She opened the car door, her high heels clicking crisply on the cobblestones, her champagne-colored skirt swaying, exuding the allure of a mature woman. Some secrets are better left unsaid. She glanced back at Su Ming, who had caught up, a mischievous glint in her eyes. She'd see just how far this little puppy, blessed with a system, could grow. In the living room, moonlight bathed the sleeping children in a silvery glow. Su Ming stood in the doorway, watching Lin Ruoxue gently tucking the children in, and suddenly realized that this was the home of his dreams. The first rays of morning light in the new villa were punctuated by the slapping sound of Sun Yin's footsteps on the floor. The little girl, wearing a strawberry-patterned onesie and with messy hair, burst into the master bedroom, slapping Lin Ruoxue's blanket with her chubby little hands. Mommy, the sun's shining on my bottom. Lin Ruoxue slowly opened her eyes, her long eyelashes fluttering like butterfly wings. Last night, she had changed into a dark green silk slip dress, the straps loosely hanging over her rounded shoulders, the neckline plunging just right to reveal her delicate collarbone and a small patch of fair skin. Hearing the child's voice, she lazily turned to her side, her face, bathed in morning light, still hazy with sleep, possessing both the cool elegance of a superior and the allure of a mature woman. Her voluptuous figure was outlined in the smooth fabric with alluring curves, like a plump, juicy green grape, ripe yet still carrying a refreshing fragrance. Nian Nian, be quiet, daddy's not up yet. She reached out and scooped the little girl into her arms, her fingertips tracing the fuzzy strawberry-like markings on the child's pajamas. Her voice, still hoarse from just waking up, was softer than usual. The door to the guest room next door creaked open, and Su Ming emerged, dressed in light gray loungewear. The sleeves were neatly rolled up to his forearms, revealing his well-defined, yet not overly exaggerated, muscles. These were new clothes Lin Ruoxue had sent yesterday. Compared to the faded t-shirts he wore before, they made him look much fresher, but still couldn't hide his innocent charm. Seeing the neckline of Lin Ruoxue's nightgown, his ears instantly turned red, and he hurriedly looked down at his slippers. I'll make breakfast. The kitchen's over there. Lin Ruoxue deliberately raised her voice, watching his hasty retreating figure nearly bump into the doorframe, a mischievous smile playing on her lips. When she came downstairs after changing her clothes, the aroma of milk filled the dining room. Lin Ruoxue was wearing a black satin blouse today, casually tucked into a high-waisted leather skirt. A delicate silver belt cinched her waist, perfectly accentuating her full figure. Her legs were encased in dark gray stockings, the fine texture outlining the curves of her legs. As she walked through the living room in black stilettos, each step exuded the allure of a mature woman, yet the coldness in her eyes melted instantly when she saw the 6 small spoons scattered crookedly on the dining table. Mommy, the 6 little ones, dressed in cartoon pajamas, looked up in unison. Su Chun and Su Yu wore dinosaur-patterned onesies. Su Ya and Su Nian wore pink princess-style onesies, and even the youngest, Su Zhe, wore a bear onesie, looking like a string of freshly baked glutinous rice balls. Su Ming was tiptoeing to reach the bowls in the cupboard when he heard the sound and turned around, just in time to see Lin Ruoxue bending down to tie an apron for Su Nian. The collar of her black shirt opened with a movement, revealing a delicate collarbone chain underneath. Her legs, encased in stockings, were crossed, and the red marks on her ankles were from mosquito bites the night before. The bowl in his hand clattered into the sterilizer, and he stammered, his face flushed. The porridge is almost ready. Daddy's blushing, Suya shouted, holding up a small spoon, and the other children immediately joined in the commotion. Daddy's blushing. Lin Ruoxue straightened up, slowly adjusting her shirt cuffs, her gaze sweeping over Su Ming with a half smile. Is that so? Maybe it's too hot in the kitchen. She picked up the milk from the table, her fingertips casually brushing against the back of his hand. Thank you for your hard work. Do you need any help? No need. Su Ming recoiled as if electrocuted, turning and disappearing into the kitchen, refusing to come out again. Watching his tense back, Lin Ruoxue chuckled softly. This innocent little puppy is getting more and more interesting to tease. What? Afternoon sunlight streamed through the French windows, filling the living room. The children played with their newly dismantled building blocks on the carpet. Su Ming sat cross-legged in the middle, patiently teaching Su Chun how to build a castle. Strands of hair fell across his forehead, tinged light brown by the sunlight. Lin Ruoxue nestled on the opposite sofa, reading documents. She had changed into a beige knitted cardigan, the neckline loosely revealing her delicate collarbone. Her legs, encased in black stockings, were crossed and propped up on the coffee table, her toes painted bright red, curling gently with each page turn. Daddy, how do you put this together? Su Nian held up a triangular building block and leaned forward, accidentally bumping into Su Ming's arm. The blocks in his hand scattered all over the floor, landing right near Lin Ruoxue's feet. Sorry. Su Ming hurriedly reached to pick them up, but his fingers accidentally touched her ankle. The delicate touch of the stockings brushed against his fingertips like feathers, and he recoiled as if burned, his cheeks flushing crimson. Ruoxue, I didn't mean to. Lin Ruoxue put down the documents, slowly withdrawing her foot, her fingertips gently stroking her ankle. It's all right. Seeing his flustered state, she deliberately stretched her leg forward, her skirt riding up slightly with the movement. What? Su Ming, shouldn't you make it up to me? Make it up to me. Su Ming's eyes widened, his hand nervously gripping the building blocks. I'll get you a glass of water. No need. Lin Ruoxue chuckled, leaning closer to him, her perfume mingling with the scent of milk. I want you to massage my legs. Wearing heels today is a bit tiring. Although she was a man in her past life, seeing Su Ming like this always made her want to tease him, enjoying seeing him blush. Su Ming's face instantly turned bright red, and he stammered, unable to speak. The children stopped what they were doing, covering their mouths and giggling. Su Nian even nudged him. Daddy, hurry up, mommy's tired. He steeled himself and reached out, his fingertips barely touching Lin Ruoxue's calf before he froze, startled by the delicate touch. Lin Ruoxue looked at his tense profile, feeling the careful pressure of his fingertips, and couldn't help but chuckle. Su Ming, are you squeezing a rock? I am sorry. He hurriedly increased the pressure, but accidentally touched the back of her knee, nearly jumping up in fright. Seeing his reaction, Lin Ruoxue finally softened, pulling her leg back and laughing. Just kidding. Go play with the children. Su Ming felt like he'd been granted a reprieve and immediately turned to bury himself in the children, his ears burning red. Lin Ruoxue watched him awkwardly being surrounded by the children, unable to hide the smile on her lips. This innocent little puppy is becoming more and more to her liking. As evening fell, the setting sun bathed the villa in a golden glow. Lin Ruoxue stood in the kitchen doorway, watching Su Ming's back as he cooked, apron on his arm. He had changed into a light blue shirt, sleeves rolled up to his forearms, revealing his well-defined muscles. The setting sun streamed through the window, illuminating his youthful and imposing figure, giving him an inexplicable sensuality. Need any help? Lin Ruoxue leaned against the doorframe, her voice languid. She had changed into a burgundy spaghetti-strap dress, over which she wore a black silk robe, the neckline open, revealing her delicate collarbones and a hint of cleavage. Her legs, encased in black stockings, were casually crossed, every movement exuding the allure of a mature woman. Su Ming paused, his back to her, and mumbled, "Almost done. Go wait in the living room." I wanted to watch you here, Lin Ruoxue chuckled, walking slowly over, her fingertips lightly tracing his back. Su Ming's cooking must be delicious. Su Ming froze instantly, nearly dropping the spatula. He turned around, blushing, and met Lin Ruoxue's face, inches away. Her eyelashes were long, her pupils gleaming amber in the sunset, her full lips slightly parted, glistening with an alluring sheen. His heart skipped a beat, and he hurriedly looked away. The food's burning. Watching his flustered state, Lin Ruoxue chuckled softly. She turned and walked out of the kitchen, her heart feeling filled with a warm glow. At dinner, the 6 children, dressed in their new cartoon pajamas, sat around in their high chairs, enjoying their meal immensely. Su Nian, holding a small spoon, clumsily fed Lin Ruoxue a bite of food, saying in her childish voice, "Mommy, eat." Lin Ruoxue smiled and opened her mouth, but out of the corner of her eye, she noticed Su Ming secretly watching her, a gentle smile in his eyes. She deliberately winked and raised her glass to him, saying, "Su Ming, thank you for your hard work." Su Ming's face flushed again, and he hurriedly lowered his head to eat, but the corners of his mouth couldn't help but turn upwards. After dinner, Su Ming told the children stories in the living room, while Lin Ruoxue nestled on the sofa watching them. Moonlight streamed in through the window, bathing everything in a soft glow. Watching Su Ming being pestered by the children, patiently answering their whimsical questions, she suddenly thought that this kind of life wasn't so bad after all. Ruoxue, Su Ming suddenly looked up at her, his eyes filled with earnestness. Thank you. Lin Ruoxue raised an eyebrow. Thank me for what? Thank you. Su Ming paused, his cheeks slightly flushed. Thank you for staying. Looking at his earnest expression, Lin Ruoxue suddenly felt a flutter in her heart. She chuckled softly, stood up, and walked over, her fingertips gently tracing his cheek. Su Ming, you know what? You look so cute when you blush. Su Ming's face instantly turned bright red, like a ripe apple. The children laughed at the sight, filling the living room with joyful sounds. Lin Ruoxue watched this heartwarming scene, and a sense of belonging she had never felt before welled up within her. Perhaps, this was the meaning of her journey to this world. Before the alarm clock rang, Lin Ruoxue was already sitting at her vanity, applying makeup. The beautiful woman in the mirror wore a beige suit skirt, the hem falling just above her knees. Her exposed calves were encased in sheer flesh-colored stockings, making her legs appear even longer. She pursed her lips in front of the mirror, a dusty rose lipstick spreading across her lips, maintaining the poise of a superior while exuding a touch of mature femininity. The tailored suit accentuated her voluptuous figure, making her look like a ripe peach, alluringly sweet amidst her capable demeanor. Mommy, I can't find my teddy bear. Su Nian's cries came from the children's room, followed by a series of clattering sounds. Lin Ruoxue put down her eyebrow pencil and stood up, her high heels clicking silently on the carpet. As she pushed open the door, she saw 6 little ones rummaging through a toy box, the tails of their dinosaur pajamas brushing the floor, the lace trim of their princess dresses tangled in knots. Su Ming, wearing a light blue striped shirt with the sleeves rolled up to her forearms, was squatting on the floor patiently tidying the children's pajamas. Her profile looked particularly gentle in the morning light. Did you put it on the bedside table last night? Lin Ruoxue walked over, gently brushing aside the stray hairs on Su Nian's forehead with her fingertips, her gaze falling on the pile of toys on the bedside table. Nian, look what's that? The little girl looked in the direction she was pointing, instantly bursting into laughter through her tears, and rushed over to hug the teddy bear that had fallen to the floor. Found it. Thank you, Mommy. Su Ming straightened up just in time to meet the smile in her eyes, and hurriedly looked away. I'll go make breakfast. As she turned, the back of her shirt stretched taut, but a faint blush crept onto her ears. Inside the nanny van taking the children to kindergarten, the atmosphere wasn't as lively as expected. Suze huddled in a corner, clutching a dinosaur toy, his eyes red-rimmed. Suya clutched Lin Ruoxue's clothes, whispering, "Will Mommy come to pick us up?" Lin Ruoxue pulled her into her arms, her fingertips tracing the child's soft hair. "Of course, Mommy and Daddy will wait for you after school." She turned to look at Su Ming, finding him awkwardly wiping Su Chen's tears, his light blue shirt collar askew, yet radiating an indescribable tenderness. Just as the car turned into the street where the kindergarten was located, a muffled thud echoed. The driver slammed on the brakes, turning back anxiously. "Ms. Lin, it looks like a tire has blown." Su Ming immediately unbuckled his seatbelt. "I'll get out and check." As he opened the car door, the morning light fell directly on his tense profile. A speck of dust clung to his shirt cuffs, but it couldn't conceal his earnestness. Lin Ruoxue watched his back as he squatted behind the car, changing the spare tire, and suddenly found the scene somewhat touching. She opened the car door and walked over, her high heels clicking crisply on the asphalt. "Need any help?" "No, it'll be quick," Su Ming answered without looking up, beads of sweat sliding down his chin and staining his light-colored shirt, leaving a small dark patch. Lin Ruoxue took a tissue from her bag and handed it to him. Her fingertips inadvertently brushed against his neck, and he jerked his head up as if burned, meeting her smiling eyes. "You look so hot." She withdrew her hand, her gaze falling on his oil-stained cuffs. "After you drop the kids off, go buy a new shirt." Su Ming's face instantly flushed red, and he stammered, "And no need for that. Consider it a reward for changing the tires so quickly." Lin Ruoxue deliberately dragged out her words, watching his ears turn a deep red, before turning back to the car, a smile involuntarily playing on her lips. By the time they arrived at the kindergarten after changing the tire, 10 minutes had already passed the drop-off time. The 6 little ones stood in a line at the entrance. Su Nian clutched Lin Ruoxue's hand tightly, tears welling in her eyes. "Mommy, don't go." Nian, be good." Lin Ruoxue knelt down to straighten her little dress. "Mommy will be the first to pick you up this afternoon, and I'll bring you a strawberry cake, okay?" She turned to look at Su Ming and saw him being held tightly by Su Chen's legs, the little one sobbing and wiping her tears and snot all over his shirt. Su Ming awkwardly patted the child's back, his voice so gentle it could melt hearts. Chen Shan is a little man. He has to protect his younger siblings. Watching him patiently comfort the child, Lin Ruoxue suddenly felt a reassuring strength in this innocent little puppy when he was serious. She went over and wiped the tears from Su Ming's shoulder, her fingertips tracing his collarbone. "Let's go. We should go." Su Ming's body stiffened for a moment, and by the time he reacted, Lin Ruoxue had already led Suya into the classroom. Sunlight streamed through the corridor windows, falling on her, her off-white suit dress shimmering softly in the morning light. Her voluptuous figure exuded the charm of a mature woman with every step, making his heart flutter. After finally handing the 6 children over to the teacher, the two stood at the kindergarten gate, smiling at each other. Su Ming's shirt was quite wrinkled, and Lin Ruoxue's stockings had a thin snag, but neither paid any attention. "I didn't expect it to be this difficult." Su Ming scratched his head, a tired but satisfied smile on his face. "There'll be plenty to do later." Lin Ruoxue chuckled, raising a hand to tidy her windblown hair. "Let's go buy a shirt. I'll go with you." Su Ming hesitated for a moment, then nodded vigorously. "Okay." In the men's clothing store, Lin Ruoxue helped Su Ming pick out a light gray shirt. As he put it on, she reached out to tie his tie, her fingertips tracing his Adam's apple. Su Ming's breathing quickened instantly, standing stiffly in place, letting her do as she pleased. "It suits you well." Lin Ruoxue stepped back, looking him over, a satisfied smile in her eyes. "It looks better than the previous one." Su Ming's face flushed again, and he whispered, "Thank you." When they walked out of the clothing store, the sun was shining brightly. Lin Ruoxue looked at the bag of shirts Su Ming was carrying and suddenly thought, this kind of day isn't so bad after all. There were noisy children, an innocent puppy, and 2 hearts growing ever closer. No, wait, I'm a man. Even if I'm reborn as a woman in this life, my sexual orientation is normal. I just like teasing him. Thinking this to herself, Lin Ruoxue instantly felt no more conflict. When Lin Ruoxue went to pick up the children in the afternoon, a long line had already formed at the kindergarten gate. Leaning against Su Ming, Lin Ruoxue watched him tiptoe and peer out, and couldn't help but smile. "Don't worry, the teacher will bring them out. I just want to see them as soon as possible," Su Ming said, his voice a little embarrassed, yet filled with genuine anticipation. When the 6 little ones ran out in a line, the 2 rushed to greet them. Su Nian jumped into Lin Ruoxue's arms, while Su Chun hugged Su Ming's leg, chattering excitedly about the fun things that happened at kindergarten. Watching this lively scene, Lin Ruoxue suddenly felt that this was the life she wanted. On the way home, the children fell asleep in the car. Lin Ruoxue leaned back in her seat, watching the street scenes rushing past the window, and suddenly felt a little tired. Su Ming quietly took off his coat and covered her with it, his movements so gentle, as if afraid of waking her. Lin Ruoxue didn't open her eyes, but the corners of her lips couldn't help but turn up in a smile. She could smell the faint scent of laundry detergent on him, mixed with the fragrance of sunshine, which made her feel exceptionally at ease. When the kindergarten teacher called, Lin Ruoxue was signing a multi-million-dollar cooperation agreement. The pen nib traced a smooth arc on the off-white rice paper, the ink gleaming metallically under the lamplight. Her fingers, holding the pen, were painted with a dusty rose nail polish, her nails neatly trimmed with a subtle pink tinge at the knuckles. The gentle female voice on the other end of the line carried a crisp, chalky quality. "Ms. Lin, there's a parent-child craft class tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m. Parents need to accompany their children to create clay sculptures. Are you and Mr. Su available to attend?" "I'll be there on time." Lin Ruoxue hung up, her fingertips tapping lightly on the smooth mahogany table. Sunlight streamed in through the window, casting dappled patterns of light on the collar of her royal blue satin blouse. The fabric clung to her full shoulders, outlining the rounded curves unique to a mature woman. Her legs, encased in black stockings, were crossed and rested on leather insoles. The heels of her high heels tapped lightly on the table, producing a rhythmic click-clack that conveyed both the decisiveness of a female CEO and a touch of nonchalant languor. The secretary knocked and entered with documents, just in time to catch her smiling softly at the computer screen. Sunlight fell on the fine lines at the corners of her eyes, which, far from making her appear old, resembled honey-soaked silk, exuding a mature charm. President Lin, this is the cooperation proposal from Hungtong Group. The secretary placed the folder on the corner of the table, her gaze unconsciously drifting to the second button of her shirt, where a pearl brooch was pinned, rising and falling gently with her breath. Leave it there. Lin Ruoxue loosened her collar, the royal blue satin slipping half an inch down her shoulder, revealing her delicate collarbone. The meeting tomorrow afternoon is moved to the morning. When Su Ming picked up the children in the evening, the setting sun was painting the white walls of the villa a honey color. He had just led the 6 little bundles of joy, each carrying a small backpack, inside when, while taking off his shoes, he heard a mechanical notification in his mind. Ding! Parent-child task triggered. Assist 6 children in completing their kindergarten craft project, receiving unanimous praise from the teacher and other parents. Task reward: 6 customized children's desks, including smart eye protection lamps. 800 points. Su Ming's fingers tightened around the backpack straps, the canvas weave leaving red marks on his palms. Craft class. He could even bend a pencil nib with a pencil sharpener, let alone mold that soft clay. A series of crackling sounds came from the living room. The 6 little ones were sprawled on the sofa, showing off their star stickers from kindergarten. Su Nian's strawberry hair tie got tangled in Su Yu's dinosaur backpack, causing a playful tug of war between the two. What are you thinking about? Lin Ruoxue emerged from the kitchen carrying a fruit platter. The belt of her silk robe was loosely tied, revealing a glimpse of her fair waist, the skin on her sides trembling slightly with each step. She handed the sliced strawberries to Su Nian, twirling a silver fruit fork between her fingers. A glance at Su Ming's tense profile caught her eye. What are you planning to do with the kids in craft class tomorrow? I'm not very good at this. Su Ming scratched his head, the collar of his light gray shirt askew from the child's tugging, revealing a small patch of collarbone. Why don't you go? I'll stay at the company and take care of some things. It's only a parent-child activity when both of you are involved. Lin Ruoxue picked up a green grape, gently twisting it between her fingers, the juices from the flesh rolling down her fingers and leaving tiny damp patches on her robe. Don't worry, I was a clay sculpting champion when I was little. The little dog I made out of yellow clay was even displayed as a specimen in the principal's office. Su Ming looked at the mischievous smile in her eyes, suddenly remembering the touch of her fingertips brushing against his Adam's apple when he tied his tie yesterday, like a feather brushing against his heart. His ears flushed instantly. Then I'll listen to you. He turned to pour water for the children, the ripples in the glass making his reddened ears even more noticeable. The next afternoon, the craft classroom looked like it had been sprinkled with popping candy. More than 30 children in aprons sat around low tables, colorful clay powder scattered all over the floor. Lin Ruoxue's off-white knitted cardigan sleeves were rolled up to her forearms, revealing a silver bracelet on her fair wrist that swayed gently as she kneaded the clay. She was patiently teaching Suya how to shape a rabbit's long ears. Suya's legs, encased in black stockings, were bent and resting on a small stool, her skirt riding up an inch to reveal the delicate lace trim at the top of her socks. Mommy, my rabbit doesn't have eyes. Su Nian cried, holding up a crooked lump of clay. A clod of brown clay stuck to her nose, looking like a kitten that had just stolen a piece of chocolate. Lin Ruoxue smiled, pinched 2 granules of white clay, and stuck them on, her fingertips tracing her daughter's soft cheek. That's it. Turning her head, she saw Su Ming's predicament. He was being pestered by Su Zhe to make a Tyrannosaurus Rex, the clay in his hands shaped like a fat eel, beads of sweat trickling down his chin, leaving tiny damp patches on his light gray shirt. Make it a little sharper here, like this. Lin Ruoxue walked over, her warm palm resting on the back of his hand. Her fingertips carried the faint scent of gardenia hand cream, but Su Ming felt as if his hand had been branded with a hot iron, his breathing becoming erratic. Several parents around them cast knowing glances, and one mother in a floral dress even secretly took pictures of them, making his cheeks burn bright red. Did you see it clearly, Teacher Su? Lin Ruoxue deliberately leaned closer, her breath brushing against his ear, cool and refreshing like a mint candy. I saw it clearly. Su Ming jerked his hand back, snapping off the dinosaur's tail with too much force, causing the children to burst into laughter. Su Zhe pouted and pushed the severed-tailed dinosaur towards him. Daddy's an idiot. I want Mommy to make it. Lin Ruoxue laughed so hard she couldn't straighten up, needing Su Ming's shoulder to steady herself. The sleeves of her knitted cardigan slipped down, revealing the delicate skin of her shoulders. I'll do it. She repinched the tail and attached it, her fingertips tracing jagged edges on the dinosaur's back. You go help Su Chun and the others build their castle. Su Ming fled to another table, his heart pounding in his chest. He watched Lin Ruoxue surrounded by the children, the setting sun casting a golden glow on her hair through the window. Her creamy white figure stood out like a piece of warm jade in the noisy classroom. Suddenly, he felt that the rewards from those system tasks couldn't compare to the gentle profile of her face when she looked down. As the craft class was nearing its end, the teacher pushed a small cart, checking each student's work. When Su Ming saw the 6 clay animal sculptures, each with a unique shape, that Lin Ruoxue had guided, he couldn't help but exclaim, these works are outstanding, especially this rabbit. Even the curve of its whiskers is so lifelike. She held up Su Nian's rabbit, which was covered in fingerprints, to show it off. And this one, so whimsical, you can tell a child made it themselves. Su Ming watched Lin Ruoxue's lips curl slightly as she was praised, a few specks of white clay still clinging to them like snowflakes. Ding. Mission complete. Reward sent to system space. As the mechanical voice sounded, he quietly stuffed his broken dinosaur into the trash can, his ears still burning. On the way home, Su Nian cheered, holding up her star-covered creation, while colorful sequins scattered all over Su Ming's shoulder. Lin Ruoxue leaned back in the passenger seat, her eyes closed in rest. The setting sun cast dappled shadows on her face through the car window, her long eyelashes fluttering gently like butterfly wings. Su Ming gripped the steering wheel tighter, the leather felt slightly warm to the touch. He suddenly said, Ruoxue, thank you. Thank me for what? She opened her eyes, a lingering languor in them, like a Persian cat just waking up. Thank you. Su Ming's Adam's apple bobbed twice, his fingertips tracing faint lines on the steering wheel. Thank you for helping me finish the craft. Lin Ruoxue chuckled softly, her fingertips brushing against the button on his newly changed shirt, a small silver bear button, which he had personally fastened for him that morning. Shouldn't you be thanking me for making you look good in front of your parents? She leaned over to brush the sequins off his shoulder, her fingertips inadvertently brushing against his carotid artery. That mom in the floral dress was practically drooling over you. Su Ming's face instantly turned bright red, as if he'd been doused with a bucket of hot water. Even his neck flushed pink. I didn't look at her. You looked at me. Lin Ruoxue raised an eyebrow, her smile deepening. But, seeing how cute you are when you blush, I can help you next time. The sunset outside the car window dyed half the sky red, like spilled strawberry jam. 6 children in the backseat sang nursery rhymes they learned in kindergarten, their off-key melodies surprisingly melodious. Su Ming looked at the smiling Lin Ruoxue beside him, and suddenly felt that perhaps the true rewards of the system's missions were never material things. As the van entered the villa area, Lin Ruoxue suddenly pointed to a 24-hour supermarket by the roadside and said, let's get out and buy some yogurt. The children need it for tomorrow. Su Ming parked the car, watching her retreating figure in high heels as she walked into the supermarket, the hem of her off-white cardigan swaying gently with her steps. Just then, the system notification in his mind rang out. Ding. Daily task triggered. Purchase a week's worth of household supplies for your family, including children's yogurt, fruits and vegetables, and toiletries. Task reward: 1 smart robot vacuum cleaner with mopping function, 300 points. He quickly followed, and just as he turned the corner, he bumped into Lin Ruoxue, standing on tiptoe in the yogurt section, reaching for the imported milk on the top shelf. Her off-white skirt slid up with her movement, revealing a section of her fair calves, the pattern of her stockings clearly visible under the light. Let me do it. Su Ming reached for the milk carton, his fingertips accidentally brushing against the back of her hand. A faint electric current seemed to run through him, leaving his fingertips tingling. Lin Ruoxue deliberately bumped his arm as she turned, causing the milk carton to wobble in his arms. Su Ming, are you deliberately taking advantage of me? I'm not. He hurriedly stepped back, nearly dropping the milk carton, attracting the attention of a stocking lady nearby. Watching his frantic attempt to steady the carton, Lin Ruoxue smiled, her eyes crinkling, and pushed her shopping cart towards the snack section, her high heels clicking crisply on the floor. Su Ming followed behind, watching her move between the shelves. She picked up a bag of strawberry-flavored melt-in-your-mouth snacks, glancing at the ingredient list under the light. The lines of her profile appeared exceptionally soft in the cool white light. Suddenly, he remembered that rainy night 2.5 years ago. She had stood like this in front of the convenience store shelves, her long black dress accentuating her graceful figure, her fingertips tracing a row of condoms, her eyes colder than the raindrops outside the window. What are you daydreaming about? Lin Ruoxue tossed the melt-in-your-mouth snacks into the shopping cart. Doesn't Suze like these? Why yes. Su Ming hurriedly looked away, his cheeks burning again. At the checkout, Su Ming stared at the amount flashing on the screen, about to take out his wallet, when Lin Ruoxue pressed his hand down. Her palm was warm and soft, gently resting on the back of his hand. Consider it a reward for your good behavior today. She handed the black card to the cashier, her fingertips lightly tracing patterns on the back of his hand, as if writing some secret symbol. As they walked out of the supermarket, the evening breeze carried the fresh scent of grass and trees. Su Ming carried 2 large bags of groceries, his fingers marked red from the plastic bags. Lin Ruoxue walked ahead, her off-white knitted cardigan clinging to her body in the wind, outlining her voluptuous curves. Her black stockinged legs, peeking out from under her skirt, gleamed softly under the streetlights. He suddenly felt that days like this were more precious than any system reward. The villa's lighting was warm and cozy, like a spilled honey jar. The children had already washed up and were lying in bed, wearing 6 different cartoon pajamas, like 6 newly hatched chicks. Lin Ruoxue sat by the bed, telling them a bedtime story, her voice soft and gentle, a stark contrast to her tone in the conference room during the day. And then, the little rabbit hugged the carrot and jumped into the cradle made of the moon. Her fingertips gently patted Su Yin's back, and the little girl's breathing gradually evened out. Su Ming leaned against the doorframe, watching, still clutching the supermarket receipt in his hand, the writing slightly blurred by sweat. As the last syllable faded, Lin Ruoxue got up to turn off the light, when Su Ming suddenly grabbed her wrist. His palm was warm and dry, carrying a faint scent of laundry detergent. His fingertips were slightly rough, calloused from years of housework. Ruoxue, tomorrow, I'd like to invite you to dinner. His voice was strained, like a taut violin string. Lin Ruoxue looked into his earnest eyes, which reflected the corridor light like 2 fallen stars. She suddenly stood on tiptoe and whispered in his ear, "Okay, but you have to wear the shirt I bought you." Her breath brushed against his ear, carrying a faint scent of gardenias. As the door closed gently, Su Ming stood frozen, the lingering scent of her hair on his fingertips. The system notification in his mind rang again. Ding. Hidden quest triggered. Have dinner with Lin Ruoxue. Quest reward: a pair of custom-made couple watches, 1,000 points. But he couldn't tell whether his heart was pounding so fast from the excitement of completing the quest or from that fragrant invitation. Moonlight streamed through the window, casting long shadows of the 6 saplings. Their story, like a clay sculpture slowly taking shape in an art class, gradually took on a warm form amidst the mundane details of daily life. Su Ming leaned against the door, touching his burning ears, and suddenly smiled. The taste of happiness was like freshly opened yogurt from the supermarket, sweet and sour, with a slightly bubbly, tingling sensation. When Lin Ruoxue returned to the master bedroom, she found her earlobes burning too. She'd been a bit overdoing it lately. Could it be the influence of estrogen? She took off her silver bracelet in front of the mirror, gazing at her mature face reflected there, and suddenly remembered Su Ming's bright red ears. No, I just think Su Ming is as cute as Xiao Namliang. That's why I always tease him. Besides him, I'm not interested in any other man. Looks like my sexual orientation is normal. Her fingertips traced the cool mirror surface, and the corners of her lips couldn't help but curve upwards. But this innocent little puppy was getting more and more interesting to tease. Night deepened, and the villa was silent, save for the soft hum of the smart thermostat. The 6 children smacked their lips in their sleep, seemingly still savoring the carrot from their bedtime story. As the setting sun bathed the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Western restaurant in an amber hue, Lin Ruoxue walked in, her 10-centimeter stilettos clicking on the floor. Today, she wore a burgundy halter-neck dress with a thigh-high slit, revealing her jade-like legs encased in deep purple stockings, like white jade dipped in red wine. The lace trim at her shoulders and neck trembled slightly, outlining her voluptuous yet not bulky curves, exuding both mature allure and the aloofness unique to a female CO, like a glass of burgundy on the rocks, rich yet thorny. Su Ming sat by the window, his fingers nervously twisting the tablecloth. He wore a charcoal gray shirt chosen by Lin Ruoxue, his tie tied crookedly, but the collar buttons fastened meticulously, like a carefully groomed but still uneasy puppy. Seeing Lin Ruoxue approaching, he hurriedly stood up, the chair legs scraping against the floor with a harsh sound. You're here. Have you been waiting long? Lin Ruoxue sat down opposite him, the hem of her burgundy skirt brushing against the leather cushion of the chair, leaving a faint scent of iris. She reached up to remove her earrings, and as her fingertips traced her earlobe, Su Ming noticed that the pearl earrings were from the same series as the brooch on the second button of her shirt. No, I just arrived. His gaze fell on her bare collarbone, which gleamed with a delicate sheen, like a layer of scattered diamonds. He only snapped back to reality when the waiter brought the menu, his cheeks flushing red. The moment he opened the menu, a system notification suddenly rang in his mind. Ding, heart-fluttering mission triggered. Choose a gift for Lin Ruoxue that carries your feelings, non-material rewards preferred, ensuring she truly feels your affection. Mission reward: 1 black card supplementary card, unlimited credit limit, 2,000 points. Su Ming's fingers tightened around the menu, crumpling the edges of the pages. A non-material reward? He'd never even written a love letter. How could he understand the meaning of conveying feelings? Looking up, he met Lin Ruoxue's smiling eyes. She was using a silver fork to stir the lemon slices in her glass, her wine-red lips slightly pursed, like a plump cherry. What are you thinking about? She looked up, her eyelashes casting soft shadows beneath her eyes. The Wellington steak here is quite good. Want to try it? Why yes. Su Ming nodded hastily, his gaze involuntarily drifting to the next table. A man was pushing a velvet box in front of his female companion, the brilliance of the diamond ring hurting his eyes. The first half of dinner passed in slightly awkward silence. Lin Ruoxue occasionally mentioned the children's funny stories from kindergarten, and Su Ming listened attentively, nodding occasionally in agreement. His ears always flushed pink. Her movements as she cut the steak were elegant and fluid, the clinking of her knife and fork creating a crisp sound. Her ankles, encased in deep purple stockings, were crossed, and the tips of her high heels occasionally brushed lightly against his calves. Su Ming, Lin Ruoxue suddenly put down her knife and fork, wiping her lips lightly with a napkin. You seem preoccupied today. His knife and fork clattered onto the plate. He hurriedly bent down to pick them up, but his forehead accidentally bumped against the edge of the table. And nothing. Seeing him grimacing and clutching his forehead, Lin Ruoxue suddenly chuckled softly. The sound was like a feather brushing against her heart, both tingling and itchy. Just then, a greasy male voice interrupted. "Oh, isn't this President Lin? I didn't expect to run into you here." Su Ming looked up and saw a middle-aged man in a floral shirt standing by the table, hands in his pockets, his eyes lingering on Lin Ruoxue without any attempt to hide it. This was Wang Haitao, the CEO of Dingshin Group. Last week, Lin Ruoxue had snatched the land parcel in the east of the city from him at the bidding conference. At this moment, his gaze towards Lin Ruoxue held not only resentment from business competition, but also undisguised greed, like a jackal sizing up its prey. Lin Ruoxue's fingers, holding the knife and fork, paused slightly before returning to normal. She knew Wang Haitao's background all too well. In the original novel, this character was a nouveau riche who had made his fortune through speculation and profiteering. Having repeatedly failed to acquire the Lin Group, he always resorted to underhanded methods, especially lusting after the original owner's beauty. This little Karami is no match for me at all. President Wang. Lin Ruoxue's voice was emotionless. She shifted her position beneath her burgundy skirt, her dark purple stockings gleaming coldly under the light. What is it? Can't you even say hello if you don't have anything to say? Wang Haitao chuckled, his gaze seemingly glued to the slit in her skirt. This is your little lover? She looks quite young. Does President Lin have this kind of taste? Su Ming abruptly stood up, the chair legs scraping sharply on the floor. He was half a head taller than Wang Haitao, looking down at him, his shoulders beneath his charcoal gray shirt taut like stones. Please show some respect. Wang Haitao paused, then scoffed. Kid, do you even have the right to speak here? Don't you know your place? Dinner with President Lin? Are you even worthy? He reached out to slap Su Ming's face, but the other gripped his wrist firmly. Su Ming's knuckles turned white from the force, the veins on the back of his hand bulging, his eyes as cold as ice. Damn it, apologize to her. Do you know who I am? Wang Haitao struggled and cursed. Believe me or not, I'll make sure you can't survive in Jiangqing. Ever heard of Dingshin Group? Touching you is like crushing an ant. Lin Ruoxue looked at Su Ming's tense profile, finding it somewhat amusing. This innocent little puppy, who usually blushed even when making eye contact with her, now stood protectively in front of her, truly possessing the aura of a leading man. She lightly tapped the table with her fingertips, her tongue calm, yet carrying undeniable authority. All right, Su Ming, let him go. Su Ming hesitated for a moment, then slowly released his grip. Wang Haitao rubbed his reddened wrist, wanting to say something, but swallowed his words when he met Lin Ruoxue's icy gaze. He then remembered the woman's methods. At last week's bidding conference, she had effortlessly crushed his 3-month-long proposal with a smile. Ms. Lin, you've got some skills. Wang Haitao glared at Su Ming resentfully. We'll see. After everyone had walked away, Su Ming realized his back was soaked with cold sweat. He sat down awkwardly, his fingertips still trembling slightly. I'm sorry, did I cause you trouble? He seems to have a lot of influence. Lin Ruoxue suddenly smiled, a smile as radiant as melting snow, exceptionally beautiful against the backdrop of her wine-red dress. You look quite handsome just now. She picked up a glass of red wine and handed it to him, her fine lines around her eyes crinkling with amusement. A toast to our hero. Su Ming's face instantly flushed red. As he took the glass, his fingertips accidentally brushed against hers, and they both recoiled as if electrocuted. Ding. Post detected display of boyfriend power. Lin Ruoxue's favorability +10. Current favorability, 60. The system notification made his heart skip a beat. So this counts as mission progress? Lin Ruoxue looked at his bright red ears and chuckled inwardly. As expected of the male lead, he always manages to unleash unexpected energy at crucial moments. She had originally been thinking about how to subtly deal with Wang Haitao, but now it seemed that having this protective little puppy around saved her a lot of trouble. On the way home with Lin Ruoxue, Su Ming kept staring out the window, his mind a jumbled mess. As they passed a 24-hour flower shop, he suddenly told the driver to stop. Wait for me for 5 minutes. Lin Ruoxue watched him rush into the flower shop, a smile involuntarily playing on her lips beneath her burgundy dress. Not long after, Su Ming returned carrying a bouquet of sunflowers, the petals still glistening with water droplets, making his face appear flushed. Here, this is for you, he whispered, shoving the bouquet into her arms. I think you suit this better than roses. Lin Ruoxue looked down at the sunflowers in her arms. Their golden petals shone like tiny suns in the night. She suddenly remembered Su Ming awkwardly explaining to the children at the kindergarten earlier that day how sunflowers always face the sun, his earnestness almost endearing. Her fingertips traced the rough flower stem, and she suddenly leaned closer to him, her warm breath brushing against his ear. Su Ming, this is the best gift I've ever received. Ding. Heart-fluttering mission complete. Reward sent to system space. As the mechanical voice sounded, Su Ming's heart pounded wildly in his chest. He watched Lin Ruoxue hold the sunflower in her arms, her burgundy dress contrasting beautifully with the golden petals, and suddenly felt that all those black and white cards paled in comparison to the light in her eyes at that moment. Back at the villa, the nanny was frantically pacing around with a crying Su Nian in her arms. Miss Lin, Mr. Su. Nian suddenly has a fever. Su Ming immediately rushed over and took his daughter. The little girl's cheeks were alarmingly hot, her tiny hands gripping his collar tightly. To the hospital. His voice trembled almost imperceptibly, but Lin Ruoxue was faster than him, producing fever reducers and a thermometer. Take her temperature first. If it's below 38.5 degrees Celsius, there's no need to go to the hospital. Her fingertips touched Su Nian's forehead, her burgundy skirt stained with a little of the child's drool, but she showed no panic. She directed the nanny to prepare warm water for a sponge bath, and then asked Su Ming to fetch fever-reducing patches, her movements methodical and efficient, a stark contrast to the female chief referee she had been in the conference room earlier that day. Ruoxue, let's go to the hospital anyway. I'm worried. Su Ming's voice was pleading, his shirt collar open in his anxiety. Trust me. Lin Ruoxue looked up at him, her eyes unwavering. I used to volunteer at an orphanage. I've seen this kind of thing many times. Su Ming watched as she skillfully fed Su Nian the medicine, her movements as gentle as if handling a fragile treasure. A burgundy halter top slipped off her shoulders, revealing her delicate collarbone, but no one had the heart to admire it. He suddenly remembered that rainy night 2.5 years ago, when she had done the same, offering him an umbrella when he was at his most vulnerable. At 3 in the morning, Su Nian's fever finally subsided. The two sat on the children's room floor, watching their daughter's peaceful sleeping face, both letting out a sigh of relief. Lin Ruoxue leaned against the wall, her burgundy skirt wrinkled considerably, and a small hole to the toe of her dark purple stockings. Thank you. Su Ming's voice was exceptionally clear in the quiet night. I've troubled you again. Don't talk nonsense. Lin Ruoxue turned to look at him, moonlight streaming through the window onto her face like a thin veil. We're family. Su Ming's heart skipped a beat. He watched Lin Ruoxue support her waist as she got up, then suddenly reached out and put his arm around her shoulder. Let me help you back to your room. Her body stiffened for a moment, then relaxed, gently leaning her weight against him. As they walked down the corridor, Su Ming could smell the iris scent in her hair, mixed with a faint medicinal aroma, which had a surprisingly comforting quality. As they said goodbye at the master bedroom door, Lin Ruoxue suddenly tiptoed and gently kissed his cheek. The touch was soft and warm, like a feather brushing against his heart. Good night, Su Ming. Su Ming froze, only raising his hand to cover his cheek after the door closed. The warmth of her lips still lingered there. The system notification in his mind had disappeared some time ago. He only felt his heart filled with the warmth of sunflowers, a sweetness even lingering on his fingertips. Lin Ruoxue leaned against the door, her fingertips lightly tracing her lips. Looking at her mature face reflected in the mirror, her heart pounding as if it would burst from her burgundy dress. She suddenly remembered Su Ming standing in front of her earlier, and the way he blushed when he held the sunflowers, and couldn't help but chuckle softly. This innocent little puppy was becoming more and more endearing. As expected of the male lead, his boyfriend charm came out so easily, saving her a lot of time guiding him. The kindergarten's rubberized running track was scorching hot in the morning sun, and colorful balloons floated along the fence like a flowing rainbow. Lin Ruoxue leaned against the awning, twirling a pair of sunglasses between her fingers. Her legs, encased in purple stockings, were crossed and resting on a white wicker chair. Today she wore a smoky gray fitted sweatshirt, the neckline plunging to her collarbone, revealing a delicate platinum necklace. She paired it with matching athletic shorts, the hem barely covering her upper thighs. As she moved, glimpses of the lace trim along the edges of her purple stockings could be seen, a look that was both mature and languid, yet also brimming with a rare vitality. Her full figure sculpted a curvaceous silhouette beneath the sportswear, like a sun-warmed jade ball, smooth yet firm and elastic. "Go, Daddy!" 6 little ones in rainbow-colored class uniforms shouted at the top of their lungs. Su Ming was bending over to tie his shoelaces. His sky-blue quick-drying t-shirt was soaked with sweat, dark patches appearing on his back muscles as he moved. Ding! Team mission triggered. Collaborate with 6 children to complete 3 parent-child events: obstacle course, relay race, tug-of-war, and win the team championship. Mission reward: 100,000 yuan family travel fund, 1 smart massage chair. The system notification had barely finished when he looked up abruptly, just in time to see Lin Ruoxue blowing him a kiss. His ears instantly turned red, and his hands, which were tying his shoelaces, became completely knotted. As the whistle blew through the air for the obstacle course, Su Ming, carrying Sun Yan, leaped over the hurdles like a clumsy kangaroo. The little girl's pigtails whipped around his shoulders, but he bumped his head while crawling through the tunnel, eliciting laughter from the sidelines. Lin Ruoxue, biting into a nice pop, laughed until tears streamed down her face. Her purple stocking toes lightly touched the ground as she suddenly realized that although this innocent young man's movements were stiff, his arms were always steadily supporting his daughter, even protecting the back of her head during the sprint. The second round is the baton relay. Lin Ruoxue called out a reminder, watching as Su Ming took the plastic baton from Su Yu, only to trip over a water bottle by the track and fall hard on his knee. A red welt instantly appeared on the leg of his light blue t-shirt, but he didn't bother to rub it. He scrambled to hand the baton to Su Ya, his voice panting. "Quick, don't stop." The sunlight cast a long shadow, and Lin Ruoxue paused in her popsicle-eating motion. This boy, who usually blushed even when unscrewing a bottle cap, now knelt on the ground with a stubborn air. Grime clung to his bleeding knee, yet he stared intently in the direction the children were running, his Adam's apple bobbing as he counted their places. She suddenly remembered him practicing the relay last night, the lamplight illuminating his pale profile, his fingers gesturing repeatedly on his knee, as focused as if solving a calculus problem. In the decisive round of the tug-of-war, Su Ming's palms were marked with red welts from the rope. 6 children hung from the end of the rope like strings of small rice dumplings. He was hunched over, leaning back, his sky-blue t-shirt torn and deformed, and bulging veins climbed up his neck. Lin Ruoxue took off her sunglasses and stood up, her purple stocking legs making rapid strides on the track. Suddenly, she joined the cheerleading squad. "Su Ming, children, push harder." Her voice carried the penetrating power unique to female CEOs. Su Ming whirled around, just in time to see her raising a hand to brush her hair aside. Her charcoal gray tracksuit clung to her body in the wind, outlining her voluptuous waist and hips. Her thighs, encased in purple stockings, were taut and gleaming with a healthy sheen. As if under a spell, he suddenly burst forth with strength, dragging the children back half a meter. When the final whistle blew, Su Ming collapsed onto the grass, clutching the championship trophy, the 6 children throwing themselves at him in cheers. Lin Ruoxue walked over, knelt down, and wiped the sweat from his face with a tissue, her fingertips tracing his bleeding knee. "Aren't you stupid? Didn't you know how to protect yourself? We won." Su Ming's voice trembled with tears, sweat mixed with grass clippings clinging to his face, like a large dog that had just finished a fight. The children wanted that trophy. Lin Ruoxue's heart suddenly skipped a beat. She looked at the bloodstains on his palm, then suddenly leaned closer and whispered in his ear, "I'll give you a reward tonight." The warm breath brushed against his ear, and Su Ming's face flushed crimson, even his neck turning pink. As the evening sun bathed the villa in a honey-colored glow, Lin Ruoxue's car slowly drove into the courtyard. Su Ming was distributing trophy-shaped cakes to the children when he looked up and suddenly froze. The beautiful woman wore a dark blue haute couture fishtail dress, adorned with rhinestones, like a knife submerged in the deep sea. The straps gripped her rounded shoulders, outlining her powerful curves, the skirt clinging tightly to her hips, emphasizing her rounded contours with every step, the muscles of her thighs faintly visible beneath the purple stockings, exuding a deadly sensuality. Her brow bone was prominent, her eyes deep set, and the mole at the corner of her eye gleamed in the light, like a poisoned dagger suddenly dipped in honey. Her lips, coated in a glossy lip gloss, carried a commanding air as she moved them, yet a gentle smile curved her lips when she saw the children. "I'm late." The cake fork in Su Ming's hand clattered onto the plate, the collar of his sky-blue loungewear ripped out of shape. This was the first time he'd seen Lin Ruoxue in a fishtail dress. The dark blue skirt spread out behind her like a vibrant night-blooming peony. Her voluptuous figure sculpted breathtaking curves beneath the dress, both cold and alluring, making his throat tighten. "Mommy's so beautiful." Sun Yan rushed over and hugged her leg, her purple stockinged calves brushing against the child's cheek. Lin Ruoxue smiled and bent down, her rhinestones sparkling under the light, meeting Su Ming's flustered gaze, a mischievous smile instantly appearing in her eyes. She deliberately walked up to him, adjusting her skirt, the dark blue fabric brushing against the back of his hand. "Want me to get the shawl?" she asked. As her fingertips brushed his wrist, Su Ming recoiled as if electrocuted, nearly knocking over the table as he turned, eliciting laughter from the children. Lin Ruoxue leaned against the sideboard, watching him awkwardly hold the shawl, her purple stocking toes lightly touching the ground. This innocent little puppy was getting more and more amusing to tease, especially the way his ears were bright red, yet he still stubbornly offered the shawl, like a puppy teased but too afraid to bite. "Daddy's blushing," Suya shouted, holding up a cake, cream smeared all over her nose. Lin Ruoxue smiled as she wiped the cream from her daughter's face, catching a glimpse of Su Ming burying his face in a shawl, his shoulders trembling slightly. She suddenly felt that wearing that haute couture gown tonight was worth it. Just seeing him like this was more pleasing than signing a multi-million-dollar contract. During dinner, Su Ming didn't dare look up, his dark blue shawl crumpled in his clutches. Lin Ruoxue, however, acted as if nothing was wrong, serving food to the children. Her purple silk-clad ankles occasionally brushed against his calves, and seeing him tense up, her smile deepened. It wasn't until bedtime story time that she finally stopped him at the children's room door. Afraid of me? Lin Ruoxue leaned against the doorframe, a sliver of purple silk peeking out from the slit of her dark blue fishtail dress, her fingertips toying with a platinum necklace. "And no, I'm not afraid." Su Ming's voice was rough, like sandpaper, the collar of his sky blue loungewear askew. Lin Ruoxue suddenly leaned closer, her lips brushing against his earlobe. "Come to my room tonight and get your reward." Su Ming's pupils contracted sharply. By the time he reacted, Lin Ruoxue had already turned and entered the room, her dark blue skirt brushing against his knees, leaving a faint scent of irises. He stood in the hallway, clutching his burning earlobe. The system notification in his mind had sounded out sometime earlier. Ding. Intimacy quest triggered. Spend the night with Lin Ruoxue. Quest reward. A mysterious gift pack. 5,000 points. Moonlight streamed through the sheer curtains, illuminating the children's sleeping faces. Su Ming stood clenching his fists in front of Lin Ruoxue's door, his knuckles white. He suddenly remembered her cheering him on the track that day, the gentle way she brushed his knees, and how she looked in her fishtail dress now. cold and alluring, yet damnably captivating. Inside the room, Lin Ruoxue removed her necklace in front of the mirror. The zipper of her dark blue fishtail dress slid down her back, revealing her shoulder blades encased in purple silk. Looking at her stunningly beautiful reflection, she suddenly remembered Su Ming's blushing face, and a smile involuntarily crept onto her lips. This innocent little puppy is probably going to have a sleepless night. She smiled and turned off the bedside lamp, closing her eyes in the darkness. As for the so-called reward, of course, she wouldn't give it to him. She was just joking. Although she was a woman in this life, her mindset was still that of a boy from her previous life, and her sexual orientation was normal. She wouldn't give herself away for free. She was just spicing things up and teasing this innocent young man. The wall lamps in the hallway cast a warm, yellow glow, casting Su Ming's shadow, sometimes long, sometimes short, on the carpet. He stood before Lin Ruoxue's door, his knuckles white, his sky blue loungewear collar crumpled, and the edges frayed. The system notification in his mind echoed repeatedly like a death knell. Ding. Intimacy mission countdown, 120 minutes. Please complete the mission as soon as possible. Knock knock. His knuckles barely touched the door before he recoiled as if electrocuted, his fingertips rubbing against the seam of his trousers. The room was quiet, save for the occasional soft hum of the central air conditioning vents, carrying her usual iris scent through the crack in the door. Su Ming imagined Lin Ruoxue at this moment. Had she changed out of her dark blue fishtail dress? Were her legs, encased in purple stockings, draped over the silk blanket? Were those eyes, with the mole at the corner of her eye, peeking through the crack in the door, watching him with amusement? Just as he turned to flee, the system notification blared again. Ding. Supplementary quest triggered. Prepare a heartfelt bedtime snack for Lin Ruoxue. Quest requirements. Must be made personally. Cannot be purchased. Quest reward. Intimacy points plus 50. Unlocks the gentle boyfriend skill pack. Su Ming's steps faltered, the hairs on the back of his neck standing on end. Making a snack? He could turn instant noodles into charcoal, and last time he almost burned down the kitchen while heating milk for the kids, let alone something heartfelt. But watching the ticking second hand on his wristwatch, he gritted his teeth and headed towards the kitchen. It was easier than barging into the room. At least it would buy him some time. The sensor lights in the open kitchen flickered on, the stark white light making him feel utterly lost. The coffee machine on the marble countertop still bore traces of her use that morning, a dark brown coffee stain on the rim of the cup. The refrigerator was crammed with fresh ingredients. Imported strawberries were as red as jewels, and blocks of New Zealand butter were wrapped in silver foil. But after rummaging through them, he finally only grabbed a bag of glutinous rice flour and a jar of red bean paste. I'll make Tanyuan. Su Ming muttered to himself, staring at a tutorial on his phone, clumsily adding water to the glutinous rice flour. Flour splattered all over his nose, and the kneaded dough was limp and lifeless, like a ball of cotton, impossible to shape. He was so anxious that sweat beaded on his forehead. When he raised his hand to wipe it, a patch of white stained his sky blue sleeve, making him look like a little bear that had just rolled in the snow, standing helplessly in the bright kitchen. The bedroom door was quietly pushed open a crack, and Lin Ruoxue leaned against the doorframe, watching the scene with great interest. She was about to go to sleep, but the noise made her curious to see what Su Ming was up to. She had changed into a burgundy silk robe, the hem loosely tied, revealing her shoulders wrapped in purple silk. Her voluptuous figure was outlined in the fabric, her curves like white jade soaked in red wine. His sharp, chiseled face was now tinged with sleep, his eyes slightly upturned. Watching his flustered movements, the hidden glint in his eyes flickered gently. Suddenly, she found this innocent boy's embarrassment more amusing than any business negotiation. Idiot, you added too much water. She silently complained to herself, watching Su Ming slam the dough onto the cutting board with such force, his knuckles turning white. She suddenly remembered the bulging veins on his face during the tug-of-war earlier that day. This kid usually blushes even when handing something to someone, but when he gets serious, he has a stubborn streak that's much more agreeable than those glib-tongued businessmen. Su Ming finally managed to squeeze out 3 crooked glutinous rice balls, one of which he even shaped into a triangle. The hot water splashing up when he put it in the pot scalded his hand, making him jerk it back. His fingertip instantly turned red, forming a shiny blister, but he ignored the pain, staring at the white clump rolling in the pot and grinning foolishly. At least it looked edible, unlike the last time he cooked noodles which turned into mush. Hiss. The breath he'd inhaled while treating the burn had barely escaped his lips when a lazy female voice came from behind him. How could you be so careless? Su Ming, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, whirled around and bumped into the countertop. The stainless steel bowl crashed to the ground, spilling its red bean paste all over the floor. Lin Ruoxue had already walked up to him, her burgundy nightgown revealing her legs encased in purple stockings through the slit. The oppressive feeling of her approaching presence made his atoms apple bob. I want to make you a midnight snack. The beautiful woman didn't speak, but simply took his scalded finger and brought it to her lips, her cool breath brushing against the swollen area. Su Ming's breath caught in his throat as he watched her turn and take out burn ointment from the first aid kit. Her fingertips, coated with the ointment, gently massaged his fingertip. Next time, remember to rinse it with cool water, at least for 5 minutes. Her nails were painted a bright red matte polish, a stark contrast to the purple stockings, like a red rose blooming in the snow. Su Ming stared at her focused eyes, suddenly feeling the pain in his fingertip turn into numbness, coursing through his veins and making his heart tremble. Why did you suddenly want to make glutinous rice balls? Lin Ruoxue leaned against the counter, the hem of her robe slipping down her shoulder, revealing the suggestive lines of the purple stockings, like lace wrapped around her jade-like arm. System, Su Ming almost blurted out, hurriedly correcting himself. I think you might be hungry. His ears were bright red, his eyes darting nervously to the window, avoiding her all-knowing gaze. Lin Ruoxue chuckled softly, her red lips like honey-coated blades, a knowing glimpse of understanding in her smile. Is that so? Then I'll have to properly savor Chef Su's cooking. The moment she took the bowl, her fingertips deliberately brushed against his palm, like a feather lightly scratching, and seeing his instantly tense back, her smile deepened. Su Ming recoiled as if burned, accidentally knocking over the milk jug beside him. The milky white liquid spread across the countertop, meandering along the marble's veins. Both of them bent down to wipe it, their foreheads bumping together with a dull thud. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. After the apologies uttered in unison, there was a deathly silence. Su Ming could smell the iris scent in her hair, mixed with the sweetness of milk. Lin Ruoxue's nose was only inches away from his, and the mole at the corner of her eye gleamed alluringly under the light, like a cinnabar hidden in her eye. He suddenly remembered the system's intimate mission, his heart pounding as if it would burst from his chest, even his breath becoming hot. Just then, the soft sound of crying came from the children's room. Mommy, hungry. Sun Yin's voice, hoarse from just waking up, was like a feather gently puncturing the ambiguous bubble. Both of them straightened up simultaneously, their faces betraying barely concealed panic. I'll go check. Su Ming rushed towards the children's room as if fleeing, his steps so fast he almost tripped. Lin Ruoxue watched his retreating figure, her fingertips lightly touching her burning forehead, a helpless smile playing on her lips. These 6 little ones had become his lifeline. After calming the 6 hungry little ones down, the aroma of warm milk filled the entire kitchen. Lin Ruoxue leaned against the bar counter, watching Su Ming distribute cookies to the children. His ankles, wrapped in purple silk, lightly touched the ground, the tips of his shoes making a soft, rustling sound. His sky blue loungewear was stained with milk, yet when he wiped Su Zhe's mouth, his movements were as gentle as if he were handling a rare treasure, his fingertips lightly brushing the child's chin, even his breathing softening. Want some of the remaining glutinous rice balls? Su Ming suddenly looked up, meeting her smiling eyes. His cheeks flushed again, even his ears turning pink. Of course. Lin Ruoxue picked up the bowl and gently poked the crooked glutinous rice balls with her spoon. The taste is good, but the appearance is a bit off, like they've been gnawed by a mouse. She teased him deliberately, watching his face instantly turn red, like a boiled shrimp. Su Ming scratched his head, smiling shyly, revealing 2 shallow dimples. Moonlight streamed in through the kitchen window, bathing the 2 of them in a silvery glow, casting his and her shadows overlapping on the floor. He suddenly felt that, compared to the system mission, this moment of standing side by side watching the child eat cookies felt more reassuring, like a glass of lukewarm water, yet more intoxicating than any strong liquor. The villa district was silent in the dead of night, save for a black sedan parked in the shadows of a street corner. Wang Haitao sat in the back seat, watching the camera screen showing Lin Ruoxue and Su Ming laughing and talking in the kitchen, his eyes filled with a sinister rage. Useless. I sent you to film a scandal, not a family drama. He slammed the tablet onto the front seat, cracking the plastic casing. Find a way for me tomorrow. Lin Ruoxue must be ruined. I want her to know that going against me will end badly. The driver trembled as he responded. The camera still pointed at the lit window on the second floor of the villa. On the screen, Su Ming was clumsily draping a shawl over Lin Ruoxue, his movements awkward yet filled with tender care, his fingers gripping the edge of the shawl, hesitant to touch her shoulder. The beautiful woman looked up and smiled, saying something. When she raised her hand, her wrist, wrapped in purple silk, gleamed delicately in the light, like a piece of fine mutton fat jade. The next morning, as Su Ming led the children out of the villa, a camera lens caught his eye out of the corner of his eye. Hidden in the shadows of the trees, the lens was pointed directly at them, the sunlight reflecting off its lens stinging his eyes. His heart sank, and he instinctively shielded the children behind him, arms outstretched like a mother hen protecting her chicks. His sky blue t-shirt clung to his body in the morning breeze, outlining his taut muscles. What's wrong? Lin Ruoxue walked over, following his gaze, and instantly understood. That old fox, Wang Haitao, he really only knows how to use these underhanded tricks. She gently patted his arm, her voice calm and even, but a glint of ruthlessness flashed in her eyes. As a transmigrator who had read the original novel, she knew Wang Haitao's methods all too well. He simply wanted to use a scandal to force her to concede in business negotiations, ideally ruining her reputation, so he could seize control of the Lin group. Just as the black sedan was about to drive away, Su Ming suddenly released the children's hands and strode forward. Delete the photos. He blocked the car's path, his legs spread wide in a V-shape, his sky blue t-shirt fluttering in the morning breeze, his eyes as cold as ice, a stark contrast to the blushing, innocent boy he usually was. The driver, caught off guard, slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching against the asphalt. Wang Haitao, cursing, pushed open the car door and got out, his beer belly swaying with the movement. Kid, didn't you learn your lesson last time? You dare block my way. Do you know who I am? I'll say it again, delete the photos. Su Ming's voice wasn't loud, but it carried an undeniable firmness. He was half a head taller than Wang Haitao, looking down at him. The aura emanating from him startled the old fox for a moment. He hadn't expected this seemingly soft-hearted kid to be so intimidating when angry. Lin Ruoxue looked at his back, blocking the car, and suddenly remembered how he clumsily made glutinous rice balls in the kitchen last night. This innocent boy, who usually blushed even when making eye contact with her, was now like a mountain, standing in front of her and the children, his shoulders ramrod straight, as if he were carrying all the storms of life on his shoulders. Sunlight fell on his hair, gilding it, reminding her of the passage in the original novel describing the male protagonist's awakening. It seemed some changes really did happen silently. She suddenly stepped forward and gently took Su Ming's hand. His palm was warm and dry, calloused from years of housework, yet it made her feel incredibly at ease. Mr. Wang, with so much free time, why don't you spend more time on the company? Lin Ruoxue's voice carried the unique authority of a female CEO, her red lips slightly curved, like a knife hidden in her smile. So that you don't lose to me again in the next bidding process. Then it won't just be a matter of losing face. Wang Haitao stared at their clasped hands, his face alternating between pale and flushed, his fingers clenching so tightly they cracked. Su Ming returned the grip, the warmth from her fingertips giving him immense strength. Even his voice became steadier. If you don't delete it, I'll call the police. Trespassing and taking photos without permission will get you in big trouble. Finally, the black sedan slunk away, its engine roaring with a sense of utter disarray. Su Ming watched the taillights disappear around the street corner before letting out a sigh of relief. His palms were already sweaty and sticky against hers. Thank you, Ruoxue. He turned to the beautiful woman beside him, his eyes filled with gratitude and a little embarrassment. He seemed to have acted too impulsively. Lin Ruoxue, however, tiptoed and gently planted a kiss on his cheek. Her purple stockinged legs flexed slightly, causing her skirt to ride up a little, her red lips just inches from his. I'm the one who should be saying thank you. Looking at his face instantly flush red, even his neck turning pink, her smile deepened. A system notification sounded in his mind at just the right moment. Ding. Intimacy mission completed. A mysterious gift pack has been sent to the system space. The system detected the host displaying protective instincts. Lin Ruoxue's favorability plus 20, current favorability 80. Sunlight shone on their clasped hands, warm and dazzling, casting long shadows that nestled close together on the ground. Su Ming looked at the alluring mole at the corner of Lin Ruoxue's eye and suddenly realized that perhaps the true meaning of the system mission was never the cold rewards, but rather the courage it gave him to approach this cold and alluring woman who had captivated his heart. Their story, on this sun-drenched morning, turned a new, more passionate page. And the unfinished bowl of glutinous rice balls still sat quietly on the kitchen counter, its crooked shape like a sweet secret, witnessing this love, which began clumsily, slowly fermenting and growing stronger with time. Seeing his dazed expression, Lin Ruoxue couldn't resist pinching his burning earlobe. Let's go. It's time to take the kids to kindergarten. The warm touch on her fingertips stirred something within her. Su Ming uttered an oh, and hurriedly followed her, his hand unconsciously tightening its grip, as if afraid the warmth would vanish like a bubble. Sunlight filtered through the tree-lined path of the villa district, casting dappled shadows on the ground, stretching their shadows long and intertwined, indistinguishable from one another. The laughter of children drifted from afar, like a string of silver bells tinkling in her heart, filling this morning with endless possibilities. After dropping the children off at kindergarten, Su Ming sat on the living room sofa, his fingertips repeatedly tracing the screen of his phone. The coolness of the leather sofa seeped through his thin loungewear, but it couldn't quell the heat in his heart. The system notification in his mind was like a time bomb, beeping every 5 minutes. Ding. Mysterious gift pack stored for 72 hours. Please open it as soon as possible. He took a deep breath and silently said, open. And a virtual panel instantly appeared before his eyes. The gold cover of the Michelin Chef's quick guide gleamed dazzlingly. Next to it was labeled beginner-friendly version, and below it, in smaller print, it read, beginner task, complete tomato stewed beef brisket and receive a 5-star review from the diner. Really? Su Ming muttered to himself, his fingertips sliding across the virtual pages. He was dazzled by the recipes for pan-seared foie gras and truffle risotto. The virtual air currents created by flipping through the pages seemed to carry the aroma of butter. Finally, he stopped at the page for braised beef brisket with tomatoes. The high-definition picture showed the beef brisket glistening with oil, the tomato sauce so thick it clung to a spoon. This was the dish Lin Ruoxue had been talking about while watching TV last night. She had been nestled on the sofa, her legs, encased in purple stockings, draped over his, her voice tinged with a hint of coquettishness. I haven't had this in so long. Restaurants never make it as good as home-cooked food. He clenched his fists and stood up, the hem of his sky-blue loungewear brushing against the sofa, like a courageous little rabbit rushing into the kitchen. The marble countertop of the open kitchen gleamed, reflecting his nervous yet expectant face. He opened the refrigerator. Inside, fresh beef brisket and bright red tomatoes were neatly arranged. Even the spices were all there, clearly prepared in advance by the housekeeper. Su Ming took out an electronic scale and meticulously weighed the ingredients according to the recipe, down to the gram. His nose almost touched the screen. He was as serious as if he were conducting a precision experiment. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, when Lin Ruoxue opened the door, she was greeted by the aroma of burnt tomatoes. She paused in changing her shoes, her ankles, encased in purple stockings, dangling in midair. Her delicate high heels weren't fully off when she saw Su Ming stuffing a blackened spatula into the dishwasher, the gleam of the stainless steel blade dazzling her eyes. Dark red sauce splattered on the stove tiles, like an abstract painting, one piece stubbornly clinging to the range hood button. "What are you doing?" she asked, leaning against the doorframe. The collar of her burgundy silk shirt rippling with laughter against her collarbone, her voice trailing off with the languidness of someone just returning from work. Su Ming's shoulders tensed abruptly, and he knocked over the dining chair behind him as he turned. A loud crash startled him, and he scrambled to steady himself. I wanted to make you dinner." A piece of tomato skin clung to the tip of his nose, like a comical little red mole. His sky blue sleeves were rolled up to his elbows, and a faint, shiny red burn mark adorned his forearm. He looked like a golden retriever just crawled out of a mud puddle, his eyes filled with helplessness, his fingers nervously twisting the hem of his clothes. Lin Ruoxue smiled and walked into the kitchen, opening the built-in wardrobe and taking out a beige cotton linen apron. Her apron, embroidered with delicate strawberry patterns, was tied in a pretty bow at her waist, instantly softening her otherwise aloof demeanor with a touch of domestic femininity. Her face was a luminous, fair complexion, like a freshly peeled lychee, so fine that even the pores were invisible. Her eyebrows, though lightly arched, exuded an air of authority. Even a slight raise conveyed the presence of a leader. Her eyes, slightly downturned at the corners, held a gentle, spring-like quality. Her pupils were a clear amber, and she was currently examining the solidified tomato paste in the pot with keen interest, as if evaluating an interesting business report. "Looks like I need some professional guidance." She unbuttoned the top 2 buttons of her shirt and then fastened them again. The silk fabric traced soft curves on her shoulders, shimmering with a pearly sheen. The shirt hem was tucked into the apron, outlining her slender waist, so delicate it seemed it could be snapped at any moment, before gradually widening downwards to a fuller, rounded shape. Her hips, rounded and full by the apron, swayed gently with each step, like a plump teardrop. Black straight-leg trousers hugged her straight legs, the hems flaring slightly past beige flats, revealing ankles with skin as white as jade. A sliver of skin peeked out with each step, carrying an unintentional allure, a touch more intimate than when she wore heels. Su Ming stared, mesmerized, at her fingers as she tied the apron. Her nails, coated with clear nail polish, were neatly manicured. The way she handled the cotton linen ribbon was as gentle as if she were handling a fragile object, her fingertips creating delicate creases as they brushed against the apron fabric. "Score the top of the tomato with an X first." Lin Ruoxue's voice carried the deep, husky quality characteristic of a mature woman, like the lowest note of a cello. As she took the fruit knife from the cupboard, her sleeve slipped down, revealing her forearm. Her fair skin glowed with a rich, moist sheen, and the veins were faintly visible, like pale blue ribbons. Su Ming's gaze involuntarily followed her hand, catching a whiff of her faint, mature, feminine fragrance, like gardenias after rain mixed with a hint of milk, the scent of her usual hand cream, which he had smelled on her wrist that morning when he took the children to school. His cheeks flushed instantly. When he took the tomato, his fingertips accidentally touched her palm, and a jolt ran through him, leaving his fingertips numb. He hurriedly looked down at the cutting board, his ears burning red, even the base of his ears turning pink. "Hold the knife like this." Lin Ruoxue bent down to reach the tomatoes in the sink. Her apron slipped down with the movement, accentuating the curve of her lower back, creating a subtle arc that blended perfectly with the curve of her hips, like a gentle stream flowing into a lake. She adjusted Su Ming's hand, the warmth of her palm seeping through the thin fabric of her apron. Her chest brushed against his arm, the soft touch of silk sending a jolt through Su Ming as if burned. He nearly dropped the fruit knife, the tip scraping against the cutting board with a sharp sound. "Don't be afraid. Use even pressure." She turned her head, her hair brushing against Su Ming's cheek, carrying the scent of shampoo. His reflection shone in her soft, spring-like eyes, a faint smile playing on her lips. The setting sun streamed through the blinds, casting dappled light into her amber pupils, like a sprinkle of gold dust. Su Ming's heart skipped a beat. He hurriedly looked away, but inadvertently caught a glimpse of her hips undulating gently beneath her apron as she bent over, like cotton soaked in water, soft and unsettling. He quickly closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and when he opened them again, he only dared to stare at the tomatoes. When she turned around after chopping the tomatoes, Lin Ruoxue's hips traced a graceful curve. The fabric of her black straight-leg trousers shimmered softly under the light, like a thin veil. As she adjusted the gas stove, her elbows lifted slightly, causing her shirt sleeves to slip down further, revealing her forearms. In the setting sun, her skin seemed to be coated with honey. Even the fine downy hairs were clearly visible. "Pour the tomatoes in when the oil is hot," she said, her voice laced with a lazy upward inflection, like a feather gently tickling Su Ming's heart, making him want to shrink back. Su Ming's hands trembled as he poured in the tomato chunks, oil splattering and splashing, a few drops landing on the back of his hand. Lin Ruoxue instinctively reached out to shield him, her apron clinging tightly to her body, outlining her mature and alluring curves. Even the slight plumpness around her waist seemed adorable. "Be careful." Her breath brushed against Su Ming's neck, carrying her pleasant, mature fragrance, mixed with the sweet and sour taste of tomatoes. Su Ming's face instantly turned as red as a boiled shrimp, unable to speak. He could only stiffly grip the spatula, letting her fingertips adjust the angle of the stir-fry on the back of his hand. Her nails occasionally grazed his skin, sending a shiver down his spine. "Shouldn't you keep the heat on?" Lin Ruoxue looked up at him, a hint of teasing in her eyes, like she was coaxing a shy little animal, but her fingers gently patted the back of his hand, a soothing gesture. This pat felt like an electric current coursing through his body. Su Ming shook his head violently, his Adam's apple bobbing, unable to utter a word. His gaze, however, was irresistibly drawn to her trembling lips. The sauce from cutting the tomatoes hadn't been wiped clean, leaving a dark red stain at the corner of her lips, like a smear of strawberry jam. His throat tightened, and he hurriedly lowered his head to stare at the bubbling tomatoes in the pan, his heart pounding as if it would burst from his chest, his eardrums buzzing. Lin Ruoxue, seeing his shy expression, smiled. As she turned to grab the sugar jar, she deliberately slowed her movements, her hips swaying gently beneath her apron, like a silent invitation. Su Ming caught a glimpse of that rounded curve out of the corner of his eye, feeling his cheeks burn even hotter, almost dropping the spatula from his hand. This usually aloof female CEO, now dressed as a cook, stood in the kitchen, exuding a mature and sophisticated charm with every gesture. Yet, a hint of coldness lingered in her eyes, like a piece of honey encased in ice, both unapproachable and irresistibly alluring. "Daddy's blushing." Sun Yan's voice suddenly broke the silence from the kitchen doorway, like a pebble shattering the stillness. 6 little ones, backpacks slung over their shoulders, clung to the doorframe, their cartoon charms jingling. Suya drew a red face on the glass with crayons and scrawled the word "Daddy" in crooked handwriting. Suze, mimicking Su Ming, covered his face, peeking out from between his fingers, drawing a burst of laughter from the others, like a flock of chattering sparrows. Lin Ruoxue laughed so hard she could barely stand, needing to steady herself by holding onto Su Ming's shoulders. Her silk shirt trembled slightly with laughter. The collar of the silk shirt opened even wider, revealing the delicate skin of her neck, shimmering with a faint pearly sheen, like the finest pearls. "Did you hear that?" The kids all noticed. She whispered in his ear, her breath carrying the sweet and sour scent of tomatoes and her unique fragrance. "Is Chef Su shy?" Su Ming's face flushed even more, the red spreading from his cheeks to his neck, as if stained with paint. Just then, Sui ran over and tugged at his sleeve. "Daddy, is mommy bullying you?" The little guy's dinosaur backpack brushed against the back of his hand, carrying the smell of disinfectant from kindergarten and the scent of sunshine. No. Su Ming's voice was hoarse, as if sanded. But when he saw Lin Ruoxue bending down to wipe the mud off Sun Yan's shoes, he suddenly found the scene exceptionally touching. A piece of tomato peel clung to her apron, and the knees of her black straight-leg trousers were dusty from scraping the ground. Yet she showed none of her usual spoiled nature. Her gentle, spring-like eyes were full of patience as she chatted with the children about school anecdotes, occasionally laughing out loud at their jokes. Even the fine lines at the corners of her eyes conveyed tenderness. The beef brisket needs blanching. As Lin Ruoxue straightened up, she noticed Su Ming staring at her blankly. The bloodshot in his eyes hadn't faded, but a gentle smile had appeared, like melting ice. She deliberately brought the plate of beef brisket closer, her fingertips tracing the back of his hand, sending a shiver down his spine. What are you daydreaming about? Trying to slack off? No. Su Ming hurriedly took the plate, and as he turned, he didn't notice the cabinet door behind him, bumping into it with a dull thud. The children burst into laughter again. Sun Yan ran to Lin Ruoxue's side, tiptoed, and whispered, covering her mouth with her little hand. Mommy, Daddy looks like the silly bear from the cartoon. Lin Ruoxue smiled and ruffled her daughter's hair, the strands soft as cotton slipping through her fingers. Her gaze, however, involuntarily followed Su Ming's figure. He was clumsily pouring beef brisket into the pot, a piece of beef scrap stuck to his sky blue sleeve. His profile looked exceptionally soft under the range hood light. Even the fine hairs were clearly visible. This kid was acting strangely today, suddenly so enthusiastic about cooking. Although he was clumsy, he seemed more lively than usual, which warmed her heart inexplicably. Su Ming made another mistake while handling the beef brisket, forgetting to skim off the foam. It wasn't until Lin Ruoxue pointed to the white foam on the surface that he hurriedly tried to scoop it out, splashing himself with water. A large patch of his sky blue pajamas was soaked, clinging to his body, revealing the faint outline of his muscles. Silly boy. Lin Ruoxue handed him a towel, her fingertips tracing his chest with a teasing smile. I'll learn. Su Ming promised, his face flushed, like a schoolboy being scolded by his teacher, but he diligently remembered the steps for skimming off the foam and never forgot them again. When the aroma of braised beef brisket with tomatoes finally filled the entire kitchen, the 6 little ones were already sitting in a circle around the table, their little heads huddled together like 6 budding flowers. Su Ming placed the bowls of rice on the table, the porcelain clinking together with a crisp sound. Lin Ruoxue, wearing a strawberry apron, served soup, the spoon tapping against the rim of the bowl like a rhythmic beat. Their arms occasionally brushed together, a faint electric current seeming to pass through them, causing Su Ming to recoil, as if electrocuted each time, making Lin Ruoxue laugh at him again. Mommy's cooking is the best, Suya shouted, holding up her spoon, her mouth stuffed full like a little hamster. But Suya nudged her arm. Daddy made it, Mommy watched. The little guy's serious expression amused everyone. Mommy and Daddy made it together. Sun Yan raised her little fist, shouting in her childish voice, prompting everyone to echo her. Lin Ruoxue watched Su Ming's ears turn bright red, then picked up a piece of tenderly stewed beef brisket and put it in her mouth. Although it was slightly southier than her usual cooking, it had an indescribable warm flavor, the best dinner she had ever eaten. After dinner, as Su Ming washed the dishes, Lin Ruoxue leaned against the kitchen doorway watching him. Moonlight streamed in through the window, casting a silvery glow on his sky blue silhouette, like a border. Ding. Host cooking skills detected as improved. Lin Ruoxue's favorability +5, current favorability 85. When the system notification sounded, Su Ming couldn't help but smile. The taste of happiness really could be made by hand, even if the process was clumsy and messy. Watching him hum an off-key song while wiping the dishes, Lin Ruoxue suddenly felt that this innocent, adorable young man's earnest attempt at cooking was more captivating than any business elite. His profile was streaked with foam, like a white beard, but it didn't look comical at all. Instead, it gave him a reassuring charm. She quietly took out her phone, snapped a picture of his foam-covered profile, and set it as her screensaver, so she could see his focused expression every time she turned on the screen. The stars outside the window twinkled like children's eyes. The warm, yellow light from the kitchen cast long, overlapping shadows of the two of them. Their story, amidst the aroma of braised beef brisket with tomatoes, grew richer and richer, like a slow-cooked broth, each sip filled with an irresistible sweetness. The ceiling light in the children's room had been replaced with a star-shaped nightlight. Warm yellow light filtered through the plastic lampshade, casting dappled patterns of light on the cartoon-patterned sheets, like scattered, glowing millet. Su Ming sat cross-legged on the carpet, a well-worn copy of The 3 Little Pigs lying on his lap. The pages were curled and wavy, the marks of countless flips by the children. His voice was a little hoarse, but he patiently read on. Then the big bad wolf blew hard into the brick house. His cheeks puffed out like balloons, but the house didn't budge, and he himself was panting heavily. Daddy, Sun Yan, clutching a plush dinosaur doll, peeked out from under the covers. Her pigtails were askew, the pink ribbon drooping like a deflated butterfly. She ran barefoot to Lin Ruoxue's side, her cold little feet making a pat-pat sound on the floor. Then, like a little koala, she wrapped herself around the beautiful woman's waist, burying her face in her chest and nuzzling against her, saying in a childish voice, I've told this story 3 times already. I can recite it by heart. She tilted her little face up, her eyes sparkling. Mommy, tell me the Little Mermaid story, the one with the pearl necklace, the one where the little mermaid gives the pearl necklace to the prince. Lin Ruoxue was sitting on the edge of the bed, painting her nails. The burgundy bottle was deftly held between her knees, the cap on the bedside table beside her, a little clear nail polish still dabbled inside. Her purple stockinged legs were casually draped over the edge of the sofa, the lace trim of the stockings trembling gently with her movements, like a white butterfly perched on her legs. She raised an eyebrow at Su Ming, her long eyelashes casting a small shadow beneath her eyelids. The clear nail polish on his fingertips shimmered under the light, like tiny stars. Mr. Su, it's your turn to show off your talent. The kids are tired of the 3 Little Pigs. Looks like your collection needs an update. Su Ming scratched his head and shoved the 3 Little Pigs back onto the shelf. As he turned, his lower back accidentally bumped into the bed leg with a dull thud, making him wince and furrow his brow. The 6 little ones immediately burst into laughter, like a flock of sparrows just released from their cage, chirping incessantly. Suya, holding her bedtime storybook, peeked half her head out from under the covers, her braids swaying with her movements. Daddy's clumsy. He bumps into the bed while walking. Suzanne nodded in agreement, his little head bobbing like a rattle, but he almost rolled off the pillow because he was moving so fast. Su Ming, his face flushed, pulled a copy of Andersen's Fairy Tales from the shelf. The cover featured the Little Mermaid sitting on a rock, the sea a jewel-like blue. As he turned to the mermaid's page, his fingertip accidentally brushed against the waves in the illustration. The cool touch of the paper made him recoil as if electrocuted, and his ears turned a quiet red. A long, long time ago in the depths of the sea. Su Ming cleared his throat, trying to make his voice sound steady. But as he spoke, he couldn't help but imitate different characters, his voice rising and falling. When he got to the part about the Little Mermaid wagging her tail, he swayed his shoulders from side to side, his arms flapping like fins, making the children laugh heartily. When the prince spoke, he deliberately used a high-pitched, gentle voice, as thin as a little rooster's, which amused Lin Ruoxue so much that she smiled. When it was the witch's turn, she suddenly lowered her voice to a gruff, rough tone, like sandpaper rubbing against wood, and even made a grimacing face, her fingers curled into claws as she grabbed towards the children. The children laughed so hard they rolled around on the bed. Suya laughed the loudest, clutching her stomach and yelling, "My tummy hurts." Suze tried to imitate her, wrinkling his nose and baring his teeth, but because he moved too hard, he actually rolled off the pillow. He landed on the carpet with a thud, but luckily the carpet was thick enough that he didn't cry. Instead, he giggled, and Lin Ruoxue quickly scooped him into her arms. The beautiful woman leaned on Su Ming's shoulder, watching him gesticulate wildly. The sleeve of her silk robe brushed against his arm, bringing a cool touch, like a feather gently brushing against him. She suddenly caught a faint scent of dish soap on him, a residue from washing dishes that afternoon, mixed with the clean scent of the afternoon sun, more comforting than any limited edition perfume, like being back in her grandmother's kitchen when she was a child. And then, Su Ming's voice unconsciously softened as he recounted the Little Mermaid turning into sea foam, carrying a hint of barely perceptible sadness. The room fell silent. Even the children's breathing could be heard. Sun Yin suddenly sniffed, her large eyes welling up with tears. She was so pitiful. Why couldn't she be with the prince? Lin Ruoxue reached out and gently ruffled her daughter's hair, her fingertips softly tracing the top of her head. Then, seemingly casually, her hand brushed across Su Ming's hand, like a petal gently falling. Let's change to a happier ending, so the children aren't sad. His eyes lit up, as if he'd suddenly come up with a brilliant idea. He slammed the book shut and began to fabricate a story. Actually, the Little Mermaid didn't turn into sea foam. She was saved by the underwater chef. The chef had a magical kitchen with a spatula that stirred itself and a knife that automatically chopped vegetables. The chef taught her to make braised beef brisket with tomatoes, saying it was the most heartwarming dish. The Little Mermaid studied very hard. The first time she made it, she mistook sugar for salt and made the beef brisket sweet. But the second time, she made it perfectly fragrant and delicious, and used that aroma to win over the prince. The 6 little ones listened, their eyes wide, mouths slightly agape, like a flock of birds waiting to be fed. Sun Yin, chin in hand, asked softly, "Was it better than what Daddy made today?" Su Ming paused, then scratched his head, saying sheepishly, "Maybe, about the same." Even Lin Ruoxue couldn't help but laugh, her shoulders trembling slightly. She lowered her silk-clad toes from the sofa and playfully kicked his knee, saying, "You made up a pretty good story. Looks like making tomato stew with beef this afternoon gave you a lot of inspiration." By the time the last child yawned and closed his eyes, the clock on the wall had already struck 9:30. Su Ming tiptoed out, like a little mouse stealing something, afraid of waking the children. But suddenly the belt of his pajamas caught on the bedpost, the fabric pulled tightly, and he stumbled, almost falling. Luckily, Lin Ruoxue reacted quickly, grabbing his wrist to prevent him from making a louder noise. The two tiptoed out of the room, and before closing the door, they could still hear Sun Yin's dreamlike voice. "Add carrots. The beef brisket should be stewed until very tender." The moonlight in the corridor was like a thin veil, softly spilling onto the floor, casting a hazy white glow on everything. Su Ming had just breathed a sigh of relief, his tense nerves not yet fully relaxed, when he tripped over the rolled-up edge of the carpet. Lin Ruoxue reached out and grabbed his collar, trying to steady him, but the sudden inertia pulled her forward, and the two of them fell with a thud onto the soft carpet. She pressed against his chest, the front of her silk robe slightly open from the fall, revealing her shoulders wrapped in purple silk, her delicate skin like warm jade in the moonlight. Su Ming could clearly hear his own heart pounding like a drum, thump thump thump, as if it were about to burst from his throat, making him dizzy. He could even smell Lin Ruoxue's scent, a faint fragrance of iris mixed with the milky scent of her freshly applied hand cream, lingering at the tip of his nose, making him feel somewhat dazed. I'm sorry. Su Ming's voice trembled like leaves in the autumn wind, his hands frozen in midair. He wanted to help her up, yet was afraid of being impolite, so he remained in an awkward position, his nose accidentally brushing against her cheek, carrying the faint scent of iris and a hint of the freshness of her face cream. Lin Ruoxue propped herself up, her burgundy nightgown slipping down to her elbows, revealing the ambiguous lines of purple silk beneath, like a delicate ribbon tied around her jade-like arm. She looked at his tightly closed eyes, his long eyelashes casting a small shadow beneath his eyelids. Suddenly, she thought the innocent boy's eyelashes were surprisingly long, like 2 small fans, gently fluttering. "Did you hurt yourself?" Her voice was tinged with laughter, like a spring breeze rippling across a lake. She lightly tapped his nose with her fingertip, a hint of teasing in her tone. And no. Su Ming abruptly opened his eyes, his heart skipping a beat. He met her gaze, so close it was almost touching. Her amber pupils clearly reflected his own image, softened by moonlight, incredibly gentle. He opened his mouth, then suddenly whispered, "Actually, I made up a story about a master chef, not the one I'm telling today. It's for adults. I'll tell you next time." Lin Ruoxue's heart skipped a beat, as if struck by something softly. She looked at his flushed ears, the red spreading from them to his cheeks like ripe apples. Suddenly, she leaned closer, her lips lightly brushing against his, like a feather falling, like a petal drifting by. "Okay, I'm looking forward to it." Su Ming's pupils dilated instantly, as if frozen in time, forgetting even to breathe. He could feel the lingering softness on his lips, and the faint fragrance of her breath, leaving his mind blank, only that warm touch amplifying. Moonlight streamed in through the corridor window, flowing over their intertwined shadows like a gentle river, merging them together, indistinguishable from one another. He suddenly realized the system notification hadn't sounded in a long time, but compared to those cold, impersonal task rewards, the lingering soft touch on his lips was the most real and heart-stirring reward. The beautiful woman smiled as she rose, her purple stockinged legs leaving faint marks on the carpet, like a light smudge on a watercolor painting. As she reached out to help him up, she deliberately ran her fingertips across his palm. The cool touch sent a jolt through Su Ming, making him clench his fist tightly, then quickly release it, afraid of hurting her. "Good night, Chef Su." Her voice was laced with laughter, like a hidden candy. Good night." Su Ming stood there, his lips burning, watching her retreating figure as she entered the bedroom. The hem of her burgundy robe swept across the doorway, like a blooming flower swaying gracefully in the moonlight. He suddenly felt that the moonlight tonight was exceptionally sweet, and even the air was filled with the warm, sweet aroma of braised beef brisket with tomatoes. In the bedroom, Lin Ruoxue leaned against the door, chuckling softly, her shoulders trembling slightly. Her fingertips traced the corner of her lips, where the scent of his shampoo seemed to linger, faint, like grass after rain. She seemed to have changed a bit. She was a boy in her past life, so how come she's now a cold, aloof female CEO, and can't help but tease this cute little puppy? Sigh. She shouldn't think about it too much. She shook her head. She opened her phone's photo album. The screensaver showed Su Ming's profile, still damp with foam, glowing softly in the moonlight, like a freshly washed strawberry, so adorable it made you want to take a bite. She tapped the screen lightly with her fingertips, her smile deepening. In the hallway, Su Ming was still standing there, his palms sweaty. He touched his burning cheeks, then his lips. The warmth of her touch still lingered there. He looked down at his shadow, then at the sliver of light shining through the bedroom door. His heart fluttered like a little rabbit, a sweet, bubbling joy. In the children's room, the children slept soundly. Sun Yin was still murmuring something softly, probably dreaming of braised beef brisket with tomatoes. Her even breathing flowed like a gentle song in the quiet night. Su Ming slowly walked back to his room, each step feeling like walking on cotton, light and airy. He lay in bed, but sleep was elusive. Lin Ruoxue's image kept appearing before his eyes, her smile, her eyes, and the tenderness of that gentle touch. He touched his lips and couldn't help but smile, like a child who had received candy. Moonlight streamed through the gaps in the curtains, casting a long, bright band of light on the floor, like a path leading to sweetness. This night was extraordinary because of a hastily fabricated story, an unexpected fall, and a gentle touch. Like a treasured piece of candy, it exudes a faint sweet fragrance in my memory. The birdsong of Saturday morning had just drifted past the window when Su Ming was startled awake by a system notification in his mind. Ding! Long-term quest triggered. Cultivating a family fruit and vegetable garden. Beginner. Successfully harvesting the first batch of fruit and gaining Lin Ruoxue's approval will increase her favorability by 10 points. Quest hint. Cherry tomatoes are easy to grow and rich in romantic imagery. He stared at the ceiling for 3 seconds, then abruptly jumped out of bed. He'd been worrying about how to increase his favorability rating before bed, and now the system had delivered this task. He pulled out his phone and spent half an hour researching planning strategies. With his wallet in hand, he ran to the nursery on the outskirts of the city. When he returned, he was carrying a bulging styrofoam box, the hem of his sky blue hoodie still covered in bits of grass. Ruoxue, look at this. When Su Ming rushed into the kitchen, Lin Ruoxue had just stirred the milk foam in her cappuccino with a silver spoon. Sunlight slanted across the collar of her moonlight silk blouse, the pearl brooch gleaming coldly at her collarbone, like morning dew on a Kunlun snow lotus petal. What's all the noise so early in the morning? The beautiful woman looked up, her long eyelashes casting light shadows beneath her eyes. Her gaze swept over the tomato seedlings in the styrofoam box, her brows furrowing slightly. Where did these seedlings come from? Su Ming's ears instantly turned red. The system's words almost spilled out, and he hurriedly scratched his head to cover them up. I heard from a friend that growing cherry tomatoes is a good idea, so the kids at home can enjoy them too. His fingertips unconsciously picked at the edge of the box, while he silently recited the system's prompt. The host must naturally blend into the life scene to avoid revealing the system's existence. Just as he was reciting this, Lin Ruoxue gently tapped his forehead with her knuckles. The touch was slightly cool, carrying the scent of her hand cream. Su Ming shrank back as if burned, hearing her chuckle softly. Idiot, you didn't even ask me before planting them. Lin Ruoxue turned and retrieved a strawberry-patterned apron from the storage room. She tied the ribbons neatly at the back of her waist, tightening the hem of her previously loose shirt to accentuate her shapely waist. She changed into a pair of black straight-leg trousers, the cuffs rolled up to her ankles, revealing skin as white as a freshly peeled lychee. Wearing beige canvas shoes, she squatted on the balcony, turning over the soil. As she moved, some grass clippings clung to her trouser legs, but this did nothing to diminish her cool, yet alluring charm. We need to loosen the soil first. She picked up a small shovel and poked around in the flower pot, her pearl bracelet shimmering in the sunlight as she flicked her wrist. Su Ming squatted beside her, his nose almost touching the top of her head. He could smell the shampoo mixed with sunshine, a scent more comforting than any perfume. He secretly glanced at the system panel. Lin Ruoxue's favorability rating was still at 85. He couldn't help but wonder, does loosening the soil not count as part of the cultivation process? Their fingertips occasionally brushed against each other in the soil, and he jerked his hand back as if electrocuted, knocking over several seedlings in the process. Concentrate. Lin Ruoxue reached out and straightened the leaning seedling. Her profile was translucent white in the sunlight, her long eyelashes casting a small shadow. Su Ming stared blankly at her focused expression, then suddenly noticed a tiny mole behind her ear, like a dab of rouge, barely visible in her hair. System notification. Focused nurturing can accelerate growth. The small text that suddenly popped up on the panel startled him, nearly uprooting the entire seedling with the shovel. What are you looking at? Lin Ruoxue turned her head, her nose almost bumping into his forehead. Su Ming hurriedly grabbed the watering can beside him and handed it to her, but his fingers slipped from the spout, and clear water splashed onto her canvas shoes, even dipping some droplets into her purple stockinged ankles. I'm so sorry. He frantically reached for a tissue, but she pressed her wrist down. When the beautiful woman looked up and laughed, the coldness in her eyes seemed to melt away in the sunlight, rippling with gentle waves. It's all right. It saves me the trouble of watering. Her fingertips lightly brushed the dirt off the back of his hand, the movement as natural as brushing dust off flower petals. Su Ming stared at the favorability rating on the panel, which had jumped to 86, and his heart suddenly pounded wildly. So physical contact could increase points? The 6 little ones were perched behind the glass balcony door, peering through the window frame and chattering excitedly. Su Nian drew a crooked tomato on the glass with crayons, while Suya tugged at Suze's sleeve, exclaiming, Daddy's clumsy again. Lin Ruoxue turned and winked at the children, her gentle demeanor towards Su Ming instantly transforming into a teasing mischief, like the first hint of spring emerging from the melting snow. Su Ming took the opportunity to add soil to the seedlings, mentally considering whether to exchange for accelerated fertilizer from the system. In the days that followed, Su Ming would squat on the balcony every morning to check on the tomato seedlings, more diligently than checking stock market trends. He watered and fertilized according to the system's instructions, even getting up in the middle of the night to supplement the lighting, his sky blue loungewear cuffs stained with fertilizer. Lin Ruoxue would stand behind him with a cup of coffee after finishing her work, occasionally offering pointers on whether to water or fertilize. Midway through a video conference, she caught a glimpse of Su Ming muttering to himself while looking at a seedling, actually listening to the system report on its growth data. A smile involuntarily crept onto his lips, startling the executives on the other end, who all stiffened, thinking they'd said something wrong. Who had ever seen Lin smile at thin air? 3 months later, one morning, the first cherry tomato finally ripened, like a round ruby hanging from the branch. When Su Ming rushed into the bedroom carrying the fruit, Lin Ruoxue had just woken up. Her pale white silk robe draped loosely over her shoulders, her purple stockinged legs crossed on the silk quilt. Her sleepy eyes lacked her usual aloofness, replaced by a fragile, alluring beauty. Ding! Mission accomplished. Please let Lin Ruoxue taste the fruit. Look, it's ripe. He handed her the tomato, his sweaty palms almost staining the fruit. Lin Ruoxue sat up, morning light filtering through the sheer curtains and falling on her collarbone like scattered diamonds. She took a bite of tomato, the sweet and sour juice immediately staining the corner of her lips like a smear of strawberry jam. Su Ming instinctively reached out to wipe it away, but the moment his fingertips touched her soft lips, he recoiled as if burned. The touch was as soft as cotton candy, with the sweet and sour taste of tomato, leaving his mind blank. Ding! Lin Ruoxue's favorability plus 10, current favorability 95. Reward issued. The system notification had barely faded when he heard his own heart pounding so loudly, it made his eardrums ring. Daddy's blushing. The children had somehow rushed in. Suya snapped a photo with her camera, while Su Nian tugged at Lin Ruoxue's sleeve, shouting, Mommy, kiss Daddy, like in the cartoons. Lin Ruoxue, however, smiled and grabbed his wrist before he could pull it back, gently putting his tomato juice-stained fingertip into her mouth. The warm touch from his fingertip froze Su Ming in place, as if under a spell, watching her lick away the juice with her tongue, a mischievous smile in her eyes. It really is sweet. Sunlight streamed through the balcony railing, falling on the tomato seedling leaves, refracting into dappled patterns. Looking at the smile on her lips, Su Ming suddenly felt that the system tasks and all that didn't matter. Compared to those cold notification sounds, the lingering warmth on her fingertip and the tenderness in her eyes were the truest treasures. Lin Ruoxue looked at his flushed ears, reached out and ruffled his hair, the gesture like soothing a frightened animal. What are you standing there for? She smiled, pointing out the window. There are still so many tomatoes waiting to ripen. Su Ming said, oh, but remained rooted to the spot. He looked at her profile in the morning light, the small mole behind her ear appearing and disappearing in the sunlight. Suddenly, he felt that this woman, as pure and aloof as a snow lotus from Kunlun, had already planted a warm spring in his heart. And those tomatoes hanging on the branches were merely witnesses to this tender moment, waiting to bear even sweeter fruit in the passage of time. The children chattered around the tomato seedlings. Su Nian counted the green fruits, and Suze, imitating Su Ming, watered the seedlings, only to get himself soaked. Lin Ruoxue leaned against the balcony doorframe, watching this chaotic yet heartwarming scene. A smile, like honey melted in the sun, slowly spread across her lips. The downpour started suddenly. Large raindrops pounded against the car windows, making a loud pattering sound, instantly blurring her vision. Su Ming parked the car 200 meters from the villa area entrance. The windshield wipers swung wildly, but he couldn't even see the streetlights ahead. Lin Ruoxue sat in the passenger seat, the hem of her deep purple velvet dress clinging to her legs in the wind. Her calves, encased in purple silk, glistened wetly, like jade soaked in rain. Looks like I have to run there. She pushed open the car door, and a cold wind carrying rain rushed in, whipping her long hair wildly. Tonight, she had specially changed into this outfit for a business dinner. A velvet dress that accentuated her voluptuous, yet not excessive curves. Her waist so slender it seemed it could snap in two, gradually widening downwards to a rounded hip like a ripe fruit. The diamond necklace around her neck gleamed coldly in the dim light, making her stunningly beautiful face appear even more aloof and elegant, like a snow lotus from Kunlun Mountain touched by night dew, its cool beauty tinged with ripe sweetness. Su Ming hurriedly opened his large black umbrella, instantly soaking the shoulders of his sky blue suit jacket. He turned to bend down and hug her, but Lin Ruoxue pushed him away with a laugh. Let's race home. She lifted her skirt and dashed forward, her high heels splashing through puddles, her purple silk trousers quickly becoming stained with mud, yet she ran like a child, her laughter ringing out brightly in the rain. Slow down. Su Ming called after her, tilting the umbrella mostly towards her, his own back quickly soaked. He watched her running figure in the rain, her velvet dress half transparent, outlining her breathtaking curves. Suddenly, even the downpour seemed gentle. The female CEO who could make her opponents tremble at the negotiating table was now laughing so heartily over a rain contest. They were both soaked when they entered the house. While Lin Ruoxue went to the dressing room for a towel, Su Ming had already turned the heating up high, the thermometer in the living room rapidly climbing. He knelt down to help her take off her high heels, his fingertips touching her icy ankles like touching a piece of cold jade. Why are they so cold? He frowned and looked up, just in time to see her unfastening her diamond necklace, her swan-like neck gleaming delicately in the warm light. Wait a minute. Su Ming suddenly remembered something and rushed into the kitchen. There was still some ginger he'd bought that morning in the refrigerator. He hurriedly sliced it and boiled it, the hem of his sky blue sweater still dripping wet, splashing small watermarks on the beige floor tiles. Ding. Triggered a care mission. Prepare ginger tea for Lin Ruoxue to dispel the cold and relieve discomfort from the rain. Mission reward. Lin Ruoxue's favorability +3, a custom-made thermos cup set. The system notification had barely faded when he heard footsteps coming from the living room. Lin Ruoxue had changed into a beige cashmere bathrobe, the collar loosely open, revealing her delicate collarbone. She looked at Su Ming standing in the kitchen doorway, holding a cup of ginger tea, his wet hair plastered to his forehead, like a large, soaked dog, and couldn't help but laugh. You heard it from your colleagues again? Yeah, they said it's good for dispelling the cold. Su Ming swallowed the word system that was about to come out of his mouth, and instead offered the cup with both hands, the warmth of his palms seeping through the ceramic. When Lin Ruoxue took it, their fingertips touched, and he recoiled as if burned, his earlobes flushing red in the warm light. As thunder rumbled outside the window, Lin Ruoxue nestled on the sofa, watching him clumsily dry his hair. He rubbed the towel too hard, making the ends of his hair stick up like bursting dandelions. Suddenly, Su Ming put down the towel and walked over, hesitatingly pulling her into his arms. His palms were sweaty, and his voice was strained. The book says, you should do this when it thunders. Lin Ruoxue smiled and wrapped her arms around his waist, her cheek pressed against his soaked sweater. She could hear his heartbeat, pounding like a drum, drowning out the sound of the rain. She suddenly felt the rain was perfect. The innocent, puppy-like man who usually blushed even at the slightest eye contact was now protecting her in the most clumsy way, a sincerity more touching than any sweet words. Unconsciously, Lin Ruoxue's behavior and mindset became increasingly feminine. Even when she occasionally noticed, she would comfort herself that it wasn't female aversion, but simply a love of teasing her innocent, puppy-like husband. Su Ming, she said, her nose brushing against his chin as she looked up. You know what? Your ears turn red when you're nervous. Su Ming's ear tips instantly turned pink, and his arms tightened around her. I'm afraid you'll be scared. Actually, he was more afraid of thunder than anyone else. As a child in the orphanage, he would tremble under the covers every time there was a thunderstorm. Lin Ruoxue suddenly tiptoed and gently kissed his Adam's apple, like a feather brushing across a lake, creating ripples. Su Ming's body stiffened instantly. The warm, soft body in his arms left his mind blank. Only the scent of her hair mingled with the spiciness of ginger tea lingering in his nostrils. I'm not afraid anymore, she chuckled softly against his chest, her voice muffled. I'm here. The living room floor lamp cast their shadows on the wall, like a blurred ink painting. The rain continued to fall, and thunder occasionally rumbled across the sky, but the temperature in his arms rose higher and higher. Su Ming looked down at the beautiful woman in his arms. The skin exposed at the collar of her robe shimmered, like pearls in the warm light. Suddenly, he felt that the system tasks and such didn't matter. Compared to that little bit of affection, being able to hold her like this was the most precious reward. Lin Ruoxue listened to his gradually calming heartbeat, her fingers gently tracing the texture of his sweater on his back. This woman, as aloof as a snow lotus from Kunlun, now let down her guard in his arms, like a docile cat. She suddenly remembered the first time she met him. He was wearing a faded t-shirt, so nervous he didn't know where to put his hands. Who could have imagined that this seemingly innocent young man would become her most comforting support on a stormy night? The ginger tea's gone cold, Su Ming suddenly whispered, breaking the silence. Go make another cup, Lin Ruoxue said, her arms still wrapped around his waist, her voice tinged with laughter. This time, add brown sugar. Su Ming hummed in agreement, but didn't move. He looked down at her upturned face, the warm light falling on her long eyelashes, casting a small shadow. Suddenly, he mustered his courage and gently pressed a kiss to her forehead, like a raindrop falling on a flower petal, so gentle he dared not press too hard. The rain outside had lessened somewhat, and the thunder had faded. Only their soft breathing and the gentle hum of the heater vents remained in the living room. Their story, in this stormy night, gained another tender chapter. And the system panel displaying their affection level sat quietly in Su Ming's mind, showing 98, just 2 points away from filling the progress bar. But he knew that some things transcended the measure of numbers. Lin Ruoxue looked at his flushed cheeks, and suddenly felt that this rain had not only trapped their car, but also their hearts, which were drawing ever closer. She smiled and took his hand, leading him to the kitchen. Come on, let's make ginger tea. Su Ming let her pull him, his palms sweating and her fingertips damp. Looking at their clasped hands, he suddenly realized that happiness could be so simple. Just a rain shower, a cup of ginger tea, and someone willing to hold you in the stormy night. The rain was still falling, but their hearts had already brightened. Su Ming discovered Lin Ruoxue secretly eating ice cream late at night. When he got up to use the bathroom, he glimpsed a sliver of light coming from the refrigerator in the kitchen. The cold light illuminated the beautiful woman's bent back, the hem of her purple silk nightgown trailing to the floor like a purple iris blooming in the moonlight. She was scooping chocolate ice cream with a silver spoon, her legs, encased in purple silk, curled up in slippers, her shoulders trembling slightly like a cat stealing food. Eating this at night isn't good for your stomach. He coughed lightly, leaning against the doorframe, startling Lin Ruoxue so much that the spoon clattered into the bowl. As she turned around, the neckline of her nightgown slipped down to her shoulder, revealing half a patch of pale skin, gleaming like pearls in the cold light. That stunningly beautiful face, smeared with chocolate sauce, looked like a snow lotus from Kunlun Mountain dotted with honey, a touch of naivety beneath its cold elegance. Just a small bite. Lin Ruoxue licked her lips, her voice still hoarse from just waking up. She had changed into a new nightgown tonight. The silk fabric clung to her body, outlining her voluptuous, yet shapely curves. The soft flesh of her waist was like moonlight, and below it, her rounded hips swayed lazily with every step. This appearance bore no trace of the sharp edge of a businesswoman. From that day on, Su Ming would hide different flavors of ice cream in the refrigerator every night before bed. Inside the matcha-flavored box was a crookedly drawn heart-shaped sticky note, the handwriting clumsy despite 3 attempts at rewriting. The strawberry-flavored spoon had a red string tied to its handle, a detail he'd made by taking apart Su Nian's bracelet. Next to the rum-flavored one was a glass of warm water, with a "Don't drink and drive" note stuck to the rim, making Lin Ruoxue laugh until tears streamed down her face. Until one morning, Su-ming opened the refrigerator door and found the mango ice cream had been replaced with peeled lychees. The glistening white flesh of the fruit, soaking in ice water, resembled shattered jade. A note lay beside the plate, its handwriting elegant. "I want to eat your white fungus soup tomorrow." The kitchen was filled with a sweet aroma in the early morning. Su-ming stood before the clay pot, stirring with a silver spoon. The white porcelain pot of white fungus soup shimmered with an amber light, bubbling gently. He carefully selected plump lotus seeds, peeling away the bitter cores one by one, his fingertips tingling with the bitterness of the lotus seeds. Lin Ruoxue leaned against the doorframe, watching him. She had changed into a smoky, gray knitted cardigan, the sleeves rolled up to her forearms, revealing her fair wrists wrapped in purple silk. Sunlight slanted in through the blinds, gilding the ends of his hair, and a speck of sugar frosting clung to the back of his sky blue loungewear, like a fallen cloud. Suddenly, she felt this scene was more pleasing to the eye than any business report. The boy who once couldn't even cook instant noodles properly could now stand in the kitchen, filling the house with a sweet fragrance. As Su-ming turned around, he didn't notice the sugar jar behind him. The porcelain jar was teetering on the verge of tipping over. The instant Lin Ruoxue reached out to steady it, they both looked down and saw a whole lotus seed at the bottom of the casserole, gently swaying in the soup. "I left it there on purpose," he chuckled, scratching his head, his ears turning red. "I knew you liked this." Her heart suddenly skipped a beat, a tingling sensation like being scalded by hot soup. This innocent young man always remembered her preferences. More vinegar than garlic in her dumplings, 2 spoonfuls of sugar in her coffee. Even the lotus seeds had to be whole. These were little things she herself had never consciously mentioned, yet he remembered them all. The children were making a ruckus around the table at breakfast. Sun Yan, holding a small spoon, shouted, "I want some." Suze immediately climbed onto a chair to reach the clay pot, but Lin Ruoxue quickly pressed his head down. "This pot is mine." She scooped up a whole lotus seed and held it to Su-ming's lips, her fingertips deliberately brushing against his lips. "It's a reward for you." Su-ming blushed and swallowed. The sweetness of the lotus seed mixed with the warmth of her fingertips, a sweetness that spread from his tongue to his heart. Ding. Lin Ruoxue's favorability +2, current favorability 100. All system tasks completed. Wishing you a pleasant life. The notification sound suddenly rang in his mind, but he had no mind to care about the reward. Lin Ruoxue was looking at him and smiling, the tenderness in her eyes like a thick, unyielding white fungus soup simmered all night. The beautiful woman scooped up a spoonful of soup, her purple silk-clad ankle draped over her other slipper, her posture languid and sexy. She suddenly realized that life should be like this. The warmth of the kitchen in the morning, the note hidden in the ice cream container, his clumsy yet sincere feelings, and this indescribable sweetness. The afternoon sun made her drowsy. Su-ming dozed off on the sofa, his phone slipping out of his pocket, the screen lit up with his photo album, full of Lin Ruoxue's pictures, her profile as she secretly ate ice cream, the corners of her lips turning up while watering the plants, her sleeping face nestled in his arms on a stormy night. Lin Ruoxue quietly picked it up and looked through it, suddenly noticing that the system notifications had become fewer recently, while the number of silly photos saved on her phone had increased. "Mom, look, Dad's peeking at you again," Suya shouted, holding up a crayon, interrupting her thoughts. Lin Ruoxue looked up and saw Su-ming hurriedly averting his gaze, his ears as red as ripe cherries. The 6 little ones giggled on the carpet, having long noticed the way their father looked at their mother, more earnest than the princes in storybooks. Even Sun Yin knew that the way their father wore his apron meant he was preparing something delicious for their mother. As the evening glow streamed into the kitchen, Su-ming was stewing rock sugar pears. Lin Ruoxue hugged him from behind, her cheek pressed against his sweaty back, her purple stockinged arms encircling his waist. When he turned around, his nose almost bumped into her forehead. Seeing the smile in her eyes like shattered starlight, he suddenly lowered his head and kissed her. The kiss was like a long-simmered white fungus soup, gentle and lingering. The sunset outside the window was as red as strawberry ice cream, and the sweet aroma from the kitchen mingled with their breath, brewing a kind of intoxicating fragrance in the air. Lin Ruoxue leaned against Su-ming's chest, listening to his clumsy, off-key humming. Suddenly, she felt that the luckiest thing in her life was being reborn as Lin Ruoxue, and meeting this innocent boy who would put heart-shaped sticky notes in ice cream boxes. The setting sun cast long shadows of the two of them, overlapping to form a perfect circle on the floor. The rock sugar pear soup in the kitchen was still bubbling, as if singing a gentle song for this belated love. The Saturday sun had just peeked through the kitchen window when Su-ming rushed into the kitchen carrying a cardboard box printed with cartoon patterns. The 6 little ones followed behind like a tail, their slippers clattering on the floor. "Look what Daddy bought." He placed the box on the counter, and silicone molds rolled out, shaped like bears, stars, and rabbits, gleaming softly in the morning light. Lin Ruoxue was wearing a pale yellow floral apron with tiny lily of the valley embroidered at the collar. She wore a dark purple silk blouse, the sleeves rolled up to her forearms, revealing her fair wrists wrapped in purple silk. Her fingertips held a mixer, whipping cream. With a slight turn of her wrist, a speck of cream, like a fallen cloud, clung to her pale purple silk gloves. This appearance completely lacked the sharp edge of a businesswoman. Her voluptuous figure, outlined by the apron, resembled a blooming purple rose, exuding a cool elegance with a soft glow. Yet, the fine lines at the corners of her eyes held a gentle tenderness, like spring water melting from the Kunlun mountains, nourishing the warm, inviting atmosphere of the room. "Mommy, I want to make star cookies," Sun Yin shouted, raising her little fist, the pink bow on her pigtails askew. Lin Ruoxue put down the mixer, bent down to tuck a stray strand of hair behind her daughter's ear, her fingertips tracing her soft cheek. "Then you need to learn how to pipe stars first." Her voice carried the gentle warmth unique to mature women, like honey-soaked silk, completely different from the aloofness she displayed in the conference room. Su-ming poured the dough onto the floured countertop, a few white specks appearing on the cuffs of his sky blue loungewear, making him look like a little bear that had just rolled in the snow. He tried to knead the dough like in the tutorial, but his elbow bumped into the milk jug next to him, spilling the milky white liquid. Startled, he frantically tried to wipe it off, ending up with flour all over his face. "Daddy looks like a little cat." Suze clapped his hands and laughed. Suya rushed over with a paintbrush, ready to draw a mustache on his face. Lin Ruoxue smiled, and pulled a wet wipe from the drawer, standing on tiptoe to wipe Su-ming's face. Her purple stockinged legs lifted slightly beneath her floral apron, the hem of her skirt riding up an inch, revealing the delicate lace trim at the top of her socks. "Clumsy," she said, her fingertips brushing against his nose, carrying a faint scent of cream. Su-ming's ears turned bright red, like cherries ripened by the sun. The 6 children sat in a circle around the dough, their little aprons quickly covered in flour. Suyu shaped the dough into some rather odd shapes, while Su-chin diligently pressed out shapes with a bare mold, only to flatten the dough by pressing too hard. Su-ming looked at his crooked little animal, its ears drooping like a dejected puppy. "Why are yours all prettier than mine?" "Daddy's bear has a beard." Sun Yin pointed at his dough and laughed. The bear's mouth was crooked, resembling a messy mustache. Lin Ruoxue leaned over to look, unable to suppress a laugh. Her silk shirt swayed gently with the movement, the deep purple fabric shimmering like pearls. "It does look a bit like an old man." She took the dough, deftly pinching it a few times, instantly transforming the crooked bear into a round, plump one. "See, it's much cuter now." Su Ming stared blankly at her nimble fingers. Sunlight streamed through the blinds, casting soft shadows on her face and around her nose, her long eyelashes like tiny fans. She wasn't wearing heavy makeup today, just a touch of lip balm, yet it was more captivating than any red lipstick. Her full, soft lips, when pursed, held a gentle smile, like a ripe peach. He suddenly felt that, more than any exquisite dessert, her earnest profile was what truly moved him. "Daddy's peeking at mommy again," Suya shouted, waving her flower-covered hands, eliciting laughter from the children. Lin Ruoxue looked up and met Su Ming's gaze. He quickly looked away, his cheeks flushed like ripe apples, the dough in his hands flattened into a disc. A mischievous glint flashed in the beautiful woman's eyes as she deliberately handed him the piping bag. "Want to try piping cream?" Su Ming's hands trembled as he took the piping bag, the cream squeezing crookedly onto the cookies like wriggling worms. Lin Ruoxue stood behind him, her warm chest almost pressed against his back, guiding him on how to hold the piping bag. "Use your wrist, push gently." Her breath brushed against his ear, carrying the fresh scent of shampoo. Su Ming felt as if his back had been branded with a hot iron. Even his breathing became erratic. "Mommy's hands are so soft." Su Nian leaned closer and caught Lin Ruoxue's fingertips resting on the back of Su Ming's hand, a knowing smile appearing on her little face. Lin Ruoxue chuckled and flicked her daughter's forehead, then deliberately bumped Su Ming's waist lightly with her hip as she turned. The hem of her dark purple silk shirt brushed against the back of his hand, like a mischievous little snake. When the oven preheated, the baking tray was already filled with all sorts of cookies. There were crooked stars made by the children, delicate little bears made by Lin Ruoxue, and Su Ming's bearded grandpa bear. As Lin Ruoxue pushed the baking tray into the oven, her purple silk glove brushed against the heating element. She hissed softly, and Su Ming immediately grabbed her hand to check it. The heat of his palm made her fingertips tingle. "It's all right." Lin Ruoxue pulled her hand away, smiling as she ruffled his hair. "When I baked cookies at the orphanage, getting burned was a common occurrence." Su Ming turned to get burn ointment, his sky-blue figure flitting through the kitchen like a flurry of wind, making the children laugh. While waiting for the cookies to bake, Lin Ruoxue sat at the table teaching the children how to decorate them with royal icing. She squeezed red royal icing onto the star-shaped cookies, like adding a red dot to a star. Her legs, encased in purple stockings, were bent over on the high chair, her posture languid yet alluring. Su Ming squatted beside her, helping the children tie their aprons, but his gaze kept drifting towards her. He watched her patiently wipe the royal icing from Su Nian's nose, watched her eyes crinkle with laughter at Su Zhe's jokes, and his heart felt as soft as if it had been warmed by a gentle rain. Ding! The oven beeped suddenly, like the opening of a sweet curtain. Su Ming rushed to open the oven door, a wave of heat carrying the aroma of butter wafting out, tousling his hair. The cookies were baked to a perfect color, golden with a hint of caramel, as if sprinkled with sunshine. "It smells so good," the children exclaimed, standing on tiptoe, their little noses twitching as they sniffed the air. Lin Ruoxue walked over and, together with Su Ming, carried the baking tray out. Their hands accidentally touched the edge of the tray, a jolt of electricity running through them, and they both pulled their hands back simultaneously. She looked at his flushed ears and suddenly remembered the first time she met him. He would blush even when handing her documents. Now, he was standing in the kitchen baking cookies with her. Time was truly a wondrous thing. "Want to try some?" Su Ming picked up a bear-shaped cookie and held it to her lips, his eyes filled with anticipation. Lin Ruoxue took a small bite. The sweet butter melted on her tongue, carrying a subtle milky aroma. She suddenly tiptoed and held the cookie to his lips. Their foreheads touched unintentionally, like brushing against soft cotton. "It's a little hot," she laughed, her fingertips brushing against the corner of his lips, and Su Ming's face instantly turned bright red, even his neck flushed pink. "Mommy and Daddy are kissing," Su Nian shouted, covering her eyes, but her fingers were wide open. Lin Ruoxue chuckled and tapped her head, then turned to grab the cooling rack. Her deep purple skirt swayed gracefully with her movement, like a blooming flower. Watching her retreating figure, Su Ming suddenly realized that happiness was this simple: sunshine, cookies, children's laughter, and the woman beside him, both aloof and gentle. The afternoon sun made everyone drowsy. The children, clutching their cookies, were asleep on the living room carpet, like 6 well-fed kittens. Lin Ruoxue leaned back on the sofa watching Su Ming clean the kitchen. He was clumsily wiping the countertop, his light blue loungewear covered in flour, yet he was humming a tuneless song, appearing unusually happy. She suddenly felt that this scene was more fulfilling than any commercial success. She had once thought that transmigrating into the body of Lin Ruoxue meant a life of power and influence, but now she realized that the mundane details of daily life held a more touching beauty. Su Ming finished cleaning the kitchen and came out to find Lin Ruoxue asleep on the sofa, a half-eaten cookie clutched in her hand. He gently brought a blanket and covered her with it. Her purple stockinged ankles were exposed. He hesitated for a moment, then tucked her in. Sunlight fell on her serene face, her long eyelashes like 2 small fans, a faint smile playing on her lips. She was probably dreaming of sweet cookies. He sat on the rug beside her, watching her sleep, and suddenly remembered the last words the system uttered before disappearing. No reward was needed. The peace and warmth of this moment were the best gift. Birds chirped and sang outside the window, and the children's breathing in the living room was even and deep. Their story was slowly fermenting, growing richer and richer in the sweet fragrance of the room. When Lin Ruoxue woke up, she found herself covered with a blanket. Su Ming was sitting on the carpet, tucking the children in. The afterglow of the setting sun streamed through the window, gilding him like a knight guarding a treasure. She suddenly felt that the luckiest thing in her life was meeting such a gentle person in this unfamiliar world, turning ordinary days into sweet cookies. Awake, Su Ming turned his head and met her gaze. His cheeks began to burn again. There were still a few cookies left. "Want some?" Lin Ruoxue smiled and nodded, watching him awkwardly hand her the cookies. Suddenly, she felt that weekends like this were never too many. After all, spending time with the one you love is the most luxurious happiness, and those crookedly baked cookies were like their love, imperfect, yet possessing a unique sweetness. The air in the boardroom at 3 p.m. was thick with tension, like needles stuck in ice. Lin Ruoxue leaned back in her leather chair, her legs crossing slightly. Her black suit trousers stretched taut at the top of her thighs, and her high heels tapped rhythmically on the carpet. "So, Director Wang means the entire project team should pay for your poor decision?" She looked up, her eyes narrowed sharply, her pale face glowing like porcelain under the overhead light. Her white shirt was stretched taut by her full breasts, the second button slightly undone, revealing a glimpse of soft flesh, like warm jade flowing beneath ice. The man whose name was called blushed instantly, the corner of the document in his hand crumpling in his hand. The surrounding executives fell silent, even their breathing slowed. Everyone knew that Director Lin hated shirking responsibility. The manager who had shifted the blame to an intern last year was still in charge of the warehouse at the branch office. "No, Ms. Lin, I just think we need more time to adjust." "Enough." Lin Ruoxue raised her hand to interrupt, her fingertips tapping lightly twice on the conference table. Her sleeve slipped down, revealing half of her jade-like arm. The pressure of her wrist on the documents made her breasts appear even fuller beneath her shirt. "I need to see the revised plan by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. If you can't do that, HR will handle the handover for you." Her lips were tightly pressed together as she spoke, but at the end of her sentences, a slight pout appeared at the corners of her lips, like a childish arrogance. This subtle contrast caught Su Ming's eye, reminding him of how she looked last night when she was caught sneaking ice cream. One second, she was a powerful figure at the company. The next, she was a mature woman throwing a tantrum at home. After the meeting, Lin Ruoxue walked into the office in 10-centimeter heels. As she turned to retrieve a document, the swivel chair stirred her skirt, revealing the rounded curve of her hips. When Su Ming entered with freshly brewed herbal tea, he caught her reaching for documents on a high shelf. The slight curve of her waist accentuated the slender waist and hips cinched by her belt, creating a captivatingly sharp angle. Her cool, professional attire couldn't conceal her mature, wanton allure. "Assistant Su," she said, turning around with a slight frown, her sharp eyebrows habitually carrying an air of authority. "Have you checked the data in this report?" "Yes, Ms. Lin." Su Ming placed the teacup on the corner of the table, his gaze involuntarily sweeping over the shallow dimples at the collar of her shirt. "The finance department just sent the final version." Lin Ruoxue took the report, her fingers gripping it tightly, the cleavage of her bra swaying slightly. She suddenly looked up, the sharp glint in her eyes softening slightly. "The kids have been asking for a family movie night tonight." "Everything's arranged." Su Ming's ears warmed. "I bought their favorite strawberry popcorn." The sweet aroma of buttered popcorn filled the villa in the evening. A bright yellow picnic mat was laid out in the living room, and the 6 little ones, like wild animals just released from their cages, rolled around on it, hugging cushions. Su Ming, dressed in sky blue pajamas, was being pestered by the children, his back and forth. Sun Yan's little feet were kicking his stomach, while Su Zhe was pulling on his arm, wanting to ride him like a horse. Lin Ruoxue came in, having changed into a smoky gray silk robe, the hem loosely tied at her waist, revealing her legs wrapped in purple silk. As she curled up on the armchair, she casually placed her feet on Su Ming's lap, her silk slippers brushing against his ankles, a slightly cool touch. "Mommy looks so pretty today," Suya exclaimed, holding up a piece of popcorn, her little finger pointing to the pearl button on the collar of her robe. Lin Ruoxue reached out and ruffled her daughter's hair, her pale cheeks softening in the warm light, like a patch of sunset reflected on snow. After the animated film started, the living room quickly fell silent. When the little fox on the screen lost its home, Sun Yan suddenly burst into tears, wriggling out of Su Ming's arms and stumbling into Lin Ruoxue's embrace. The little fox is so pitiful. She buried her face in the beautiful woman's neck, tears soaking her silk robe. Lin Ruoxue patted her daughter's back while glancing up at Su Ming. Sure enough, this man, who always easily empathized while watching cartoons, was secretly wiping the corner of his eye with the back of his hand. She couldn't help but chuckle, reaching across the picnic mat to lightly brush her fingertips against his eyelids. "How old are you?" she said. Su Ming's face flushed crimson, like a boiled shrimp. The children's attention was entirely on the screen. No one noticed Lin Ruoxue's fingertips lingering on his cheek for a couple of seconds, the lace trim of her purple silk gloves brushing against his chin, sending a shiver down his spine. By the time the movie reached the scene where the little fox found its new home, Su Zhe was already fast asleep on Su Ming's lap, his drool soaking his pajamas. Sun Yan nestled in Lin Ruoxue's arms, tears still clinging to her eyelashes, her breathing as even as a kitten's. As the movie ended, Su Ming carefully picked up 3 children, while Lin Ruoxue held the other 3 by their collars, like carrying a string of little dumplings. The 2 tiptoed into the children's room, moonlight filtering through the curtains, casting dappled silver spots on the floor. After Su Ming quietly closed the door, only a warm yellow nightlight remained in the living room. Lin Ruoxue sat on the sofa, a steaming glass of milk on the coffee table in front of her. "Come here." She patted the empty seat beside her, her smoky gray robe opening slightly with a movement, revealing her shoulders wrapped in purple silk. "I warmed up a glass of milk for you." Su Ming sat down, his nose almost bumping into the top of her head. The fresh scent of shampoo mingled with the sweetness of popcorn, filling his chest. At the company today, he wanted to say something, but didn't know where to begin. Director Wang submitted his resignation. Lin Ruoxue sipped her milk, a few drops staining her lips, like a cat that had stolen a drink of milk. Actually, he's quite capable, just too afraid of taking responsibility. When she turned her head, the sharp glint in her eyes melted away, leaving only the gentle warmth of a mature woman. Unlike you just blindly rush forward no matter what you do. Su Ming recalled how she had confronted the director that morning at the company, defending the project team. The buttons of her white shirt nearly popped open, the rise and fall of her chest conveying anger, yet she had managed to subdue the entire room with her cold, hard aura. But now, nestled on the sofa, her purple silk slippers casually draped over the coffee table, even her complaints carried a hint of coquettishness. "Then why didn't you just?" "The workplace isn't black and white." Lin Ruoxue interrupted him, her fingertips tracing the veins on the back of his hand. "Sometimes leaving room for maneuver is to go further." She chuckled softly, the mole at the corner of her eye gleaming under the light. "But seeing you clench your fist in the meeting room today, you seemed even angrier than me." Su Ming's face flushed again. He was indeed furious, seeing everyone shifting the blame onto her. He wanted nothing more than to confront them. But he was just a family member. Even his entry into the meeting room was specially approved by her. His super daddy system had vanished after his affinity with Lin Ruoxue reached its maximum. The occasional childcare tasks and rewards he received were of no help to Lin Ruoxue. As for Lin Ruoxue, as a transmigrator, she understood the plot. Initially, she actually wanted to rely on Su Ming. After all, he had a system. But later, Lin Ruoxue didn't want to worry about that anymore. She inherited her predecessor's abilities and everything, and could live well even without Su Ming. However, for some reason, she especially liked Su Ming's puppy-like charm, and also loved her 6 adorable babies. Occasionally, she'd be annoyed that some of her actions and reactions were too effeminate, completely unlike what a boy in her past life should behave. But sometimes, she just didn't want to think about it so much. She'd arranged for Su Ming to work at the company because she was a little inseparable from this little cutie. Well, she wasn't from non-tome. She simply found Su Ming adorable, and in this life, he was her husband. Don't glare at people at the company anymore. Lin Ruoxue pinched his cheek, the force like kneading dough. With that look, even 10 years of practice wouldn't scare anyone. It would only make people think you're cute. "I'm not cute," Su Ming retorted stubbornly, but cowered the moment she raised an eyebrow. "Okay, I'll try." The warm yellow light cast their shadows on the wall, like a blurred ink painting. Lin Ruoxue suddenly leaned on his shoulder. The coolness of her silk robe seeped through the fabric, yet it felt warmer than any embrace. "Actually, I get really nervous every time I argue with the board members." Her voice was soft, as if afraid the moonlight would hear. "But seeing you standing in the back row makes it seem less difficult." Su Ming's heart skipped a beat, as if struck by something. He reached out and wrapped his arms around her waist, his fingertips brushing against the warm skin beneath her robe, the full curves of her breasts offering a reassuring softness. "I'll come to the company every day to be with you from now on." "No way," Lin Ruoxue laughed, pushing him away. "You'll just distract me." She tilted her head back, her lips brushing against his chin. "But, for breakfast tomorrow morning, I want your scallion oil noodles." "Okay." Su Ming's voice trembled slightly. He suddenly understood that this powerful female CEO, who could silence everyone at the company, was at home just a woman who could be affectionate, afraid, and needing to be loved. The nightlight's glow gradually blurred, and the milk on the coffee table was still steaming. Nestled in Su Ming's arms, Lin Ruoxue listened to his heartbeat drown out the chirping of insects outside the window. Suddenly, all those board meetings and project reports seemed like distant background noise. At this moment, she didn't need to be anyone's CEO, just Su Ming's wife and the mother of 6 children. Su Ming looked down at the person in his arms. The hollow of her collarbone, revealed by the collar of her robe, was perfectly positioned, like a small pool filled with moonlight. He suddenly remembered that afternoon at the company, when she took off her suit jacket, the fragrant breeze wafting from her arms, the cleavage accentuated by her camisole swaying slightly. It turned out that even beneath the hardest armor lay such soft flesh and soul. "Sleep well." He gently kissed the top of her head. "We have to get up early tomorrow to make scallion oil noodles." Lin Ruoxue snuggled against him, like a cat finding a warm nest. Moonlight streamed through the balcony railing, falling on the living room floor like a thin veil. Their story, woven from the sharp arguments at the office and the tender words at home, formed a fine net, capturing both the storms of the workplace and the moonlight by their pillows. At dawn, Su-ming woke to the aroma of noodles cooking in the kitchen. Lin Ruoxue had already changed into her suit and was putting on her high heels in the entryway, her ankles, encased in purple stockings, swaying beautifully. Wake me when the noodles are ready. When she turned around, a hint of a smile lurked in the sharp glint of her eyes, like the light after a snowfall. Okay. Watching her retreating figure, Su-ming suddenly realized that true happiness is simply having someone who will fight for you in the conference room and also treat you gently at the breakfast table. The afternoon sun scorched the villa's swimming pool, its surface dotted with colorful buoys like a sprinkle of rainbow candy. Su-ming, wearing a dinosaur-shaped swimming ring and his sky-blue swim trunks rolled up to his thighs, was bending over, teaching the children how to hold their breath. Like Daddy, take a deep breath. He pinched his nose and submerged his head in the water. The dinosaur fin-shaped ring rippled on the surface, eliciting splashes and squeals from the 6 little ones. On a lounge chair under a parasol, Lin Ruoxue was applying sunscreen. The straps of her black one-piece swimsuit clung to her rounded shoulders, outlining the straight, slender lines of her back, which suddenly widened to a fuller shape below. The soft flesh of her waist was accentuated by the swimsuit, creating an alluring curve, like white jade softened by moonlight. Her hips hung heavily, swaying with every movement. She wore purple silk sun-protective sleeves, the lace trim sliding down to her elbows, revealing her forearms with smooth, waxed skin, a striking contrast to her pale complexion. Mommy's applying it so slowly. Sun Yan, holding a pink float, lay on the edge of the pool, water droplets dripping from her pigtails into the water. When Lin Ruoxue looked up, her cold eyes, with their slightly upturned corners, seemed like an icy blade suddenly glistening with moisture. Don't rush the little one. Her voice carried its usual coolness, but seeing her daughter's pouting lips, she dabbed some sunscreen on her nose with her fingertip. That way you won't get a little charcoal briquette. Su-ming stared blankly at the scene. The usually powerful female CEO, now lying in the sunlight in a swimsuit, her breasts barely concealed beneath the black swimsuit, like warm jade hidden beneath ice. Her fingertips, nimbly applying sunscreen, traced the hollow of her collarbone, a perfectly recessed area where sunlight dappled the light. This appearance completely lacked the coldness of a Kunlun snow lotus. She was clearly a purple rose dipped in water, vibrant and alluring. Daddy, look at me. Suze suddenly lunged at Su-ming from the water, his small body crashing into his stomach. The splashing water exploded like silver beads, precisely drenching Lin Ruoxue. Her swimsuit skirt was instantly soaked, clinging to her thighs and outlining the shapely lines of her long legs. Plump thighs with soft flesh, calves lean and bony, water droplets trickling down her skin like watermarks on cold jade. Suze. Lin Ruoxue feigned anger, her brows furrowing in a habitually authoritative expression, but a mischievous glint flashed in her eyes. She grabbed the water gun beside her, filled it with water, and splashed it at the father and son. Her purple silk sleeve slid down to her wrists with a movement, revealing her smooth, oily armpits, a strange contrast to her cold, hard movements. The children's screams nearly overturned the pool. Su-ming supported her waist to steady her, his fingertips inadvertently brushing against the skin beneath her swimsuit, warm and delicate, like holding a piece of warm jade. He suddenly felt his heart skip a beat, and hurriedly tried to pull his hand back, but Lin Ruoxue held his wrist firmly, though there was a barely perceptible tremor in her grip. Lin Ruoxue's body instantly stiffened. As a male-to-female soul, she always had strict boundaries regarding physical contact. Even with Su-ming, it was always she who took the initiative and teased him forcefully. But now, with his palm pressed against her waist and abdomen, the heat surged through her body like an electric current, making her inexplicably flustered. She could clearly feel the thin calluses on his fingertips, a strange itch as they brushed against the swimsuit fabric. You let go. Lin Ruoxue's voice trembled slightly, her usual assertiveness completely gone. She turned her face away, not daring to look at Su-ming, but her jade-like face uncontrollably flushed red, the blush against her pale skin like a wild rose blooming in the snow. This womanly appearance was unfamiliar, even to herself. Su-ming was stunned. He had never seen Lin Ruoxue like this before. Gone was the sharp edge she displayed in the business world. Gone was the cunning she used when teasing him. Now, she was like a startled fawn, her eyes reddening, her lips slightly pouting, carrying a touch of childlike arrogance. Suddenly, he felt his heart skip a beat, melting completely. I was afraid you'd slip, he said softly, his hand supporting her waist tightening even more. The pool water gradually calmed. Lin Ruoxue could hear her own heart pounding like a drum, drowning out the children's playful noise. She secretly glanced up and saw Su-ming looking down at her, his eyes filled with a tenderness like unmelting honey. The innocent, puppy-like gaze of this boy was so intense that she wanted to look away, but her body seemed frozen in place. Mommy and Daddy are hugging me, Sun Yan shouted, holding up her float, drawing laughter from the other children. Lin Ruoxue finally snapped out of her daze, abruptly pushing Su-ming away and turning to climb ashore, but she slipped and almost fell back into the water. Su-ming quickly grabbed her, this time holding her hand. Her fingertips were icy cold and trembling slightly. Be careful. Su-ming helped her to the steps by the pool, watching her wrap herself in a towel, like a tightly coiled cocoon. Lin Ruoxue bent over, wringing out water from her swimsuit. Water droplets dripped from the black fabric onto her bare ankles, where faint red marks from stepping on the pool edge were prominent, full but not bloated, strikingly noticeable. I'm going to change. As she stood up, her jawline, usually cold yet gentle, was taut, but she secretly glanced at Su-ming as she turned. He was still standing in the water, his dinosaur swim ring askew, staring blankly at her, his ears as red as ripe cherries. Lin Ruoxue's heart pounded again, and she hurriedly quickened her pace towards the villa, not even noticing her purple silk arm warmers falling to the ground. When Su-ming picked up the arm warmers, the warmth of her touch still lingered on his fingertips. He suddenly felt that the shy Lin Ruoxue from just now was more captivating than ever before. That always strong and aloof beautiful woman, it turned out, also had such a soft side, like honey encased in an icy shell, finally revealing its sweetness. When Lin Ruoxue came out after changing, she had already regained her usual cool demeanor. She was wearing a cream-colored silk nightgown, the neckline plunging to her collarbone, and purple silk pajama bottoms that hugged her long legs. She sat on a wicker chair on the terrace, sipping iced tea. Su-ming noticed, however, that her fingertips, holding the glass, were still trembling slightly. Mommy, would you like some watermelon? Suya ran over with a fruit platter, on which a delicate little fork was stuck. As Lin Ruoxue took it, her wrist accidentally brushed against her daughter's forehead, still damp from the pool. Slow down, don't fall. Her voice was soft, a stark contrast to her earlier panic in the pool. Su-ming sat down beside her and handed her the dried purple silk arm sleeves. Thanks. Lin Ruoxue's voice was a little muffled, but she didn't tease him as usual. Sunlight filtered through the grapevines onto her face, her frosty lips slightly pouting, as if she were sulking. Yet, to Su-ming, this appearance only seemed incredibly adorable. I'm sorry just now. Su-ming scratched his head and apologized, a secret thrill creeping into his heart. He liked seeing her like this, like the contrast she displayed for him. It made him feel that the distance between them had shrunk another step. Lin Ruoxue turned to look at him, the icy coldness in her eyes seeming to melt slightly. If you dare pull me again, I'll dock your allowance. Her tone was still threatening, but the corners of her lips couldn't help but curve upwards. Water droplets dripped from the grapevines, landing on the back of her hand. She instinctively flinched, like a startled rabbit. Su Ming's heart began to race again. He suddenly mustered his courage and reached out to brush the water droplets from her hand. The instant their fingertips touched, Lin Ruoxue recoiled as if burned, her blush deepening. Su Ming. She glared at him reproachfully, but wasn't truly angry. The children started playing in the pool again, their laughter as clear as silver bells. Lin Ruoxue leaned back in her wicker chair, watching Su Ming get up to play with the children. His dinosaur-shaped swim ring gleamed in the sunlight. She suddenly thought that this kind of summer wasn't so bad. A swimming pool, children, and someone she could let her guard down with. As the sun set, Su Ming returned carrying the exhausted and asleep Su Zhe. The other children leaned listlessly on the sofa. Lin Ruoxue had already prepared dinner, the aroma of sweet and sour pork ribs filling the living room. She wore an apron and brought out the dishes, having changed out of her black swimsuit for loungewear, yet she was still breathtakingly beautiful. Hurry up and wash your hands before eating. She patted Su Ming's arm, her fingertips glistening with a drop of oil from cooking. Watching her busy figure, Su Ming suddenly realized that happiness was probably like this: sunshine, a swimming pool, children's laughter, and a beautiful woman who would occasionally reveal her vulnerable side. As Lin Ruoxue turned around, her gaze met his. She paused for a moment, then smiled faintly, her frosty lips finally softening with warmth. What are you looking at? If you keep looking, the children will devour all the dinner. Her voice was laced with laughter, like honey-soaked silk, so gentle it seemed to melt at the touch. Su Ming smiled and ran over to help, his heart pounding like a sweet rabbit. He knew that Lin Ruoxue, this Kunlun snow lotus, only melted into a pool of spring water in front of him and the children. And this unique gentleness was the most precious treasure of his life. The buoys in the pool were still gently swaying, as if applauding the summer party. Their story continues, blooming with the sweetest flowers in every ordinary yet heartwarming day. The suburban farm was filled with the scent of fresh grass on the weekend, and morning dew still clung to the strawberry leaves like scattered diamonds. Su Ming, carrying a bamboo basket, squatted by the edge of the field. His sky blue cotton shirt was speckled with dirt as he picked up a ripe strawberry and taught the children to identify it. These with white tips aren't ripe yet. You have to choose the completely red ones, like Sun Yan's cheeks. Daddy's talking nonsense. Sun Yan ran over, holding a small tomato covered in dirt. The bow on her pigtails was askew, and juice dripped onto her pale yellow overalls, creating an abstract painting. A soft laugh came from under the great trellis. When Su Ming looked up, his heart skipped a beat. Lin Ruoxue stood under the vine-covered trellis, wearing a beige cotton linen long dress with a light brown wheat ear pattern embroidered on the neckline. Her skirt reached her ankles, yet as she moved, glimpses of her legs, encased in purple silk stockings, could be seen. Her thighs were plump and fleshy, her calves slender and shapely. The matte purple silk made her long, fair legs appear as if shrouded in a thin mist. She wore matching purple silk gloves, her fingertips gently twirling a bunch of green grapes, the fruit bloom clinging to the gloves like a layer of fine snow. This appearance bore no trace of the sharp edge of a powerful businesswoman. Morning light filtered through the grape leaves, illuminating her profile. Her face was as white as porcelain, her brows like distant snow-capped mountains, her autumn eyes half closed, her pupils holding an unmelted, cold pool, while the soft mounds at the corners of her eyes revealed a mature woman's gentleness. Her movements as she picked grapes were slow and leisurely, her fingertips occasionally brushing against the vines. Dewdrops clung to the leaves of her purple silk gloves, glistening and trickling down, dripping onto the curve of her full, fragrant lips. A perfect image of a red rose blooming atop a snow-capped mountain, seemingly unattainable, yet its petals concealing an intoxicating allure. Mommy. Sun Yan rushed forward, holding a cherry tomato, nearly bumping into the great trellis support. As Lin Ruoxue bent down, the hem of her cotton linen skirt swept across the grass, carrying a whiff of its fresh scent. Her movements possessed a mature woman's characteristic languidness. Her ample bosom, rounded by the long skirt, trembled slightly against the fabric, yet never quite revealing, remaining perfectly suggestive. Slow down. Lin Ruoxue's voice held its usual coolness, but as she wiped the juice from her daughter's lips, her fingertips moved with exquisite gentleness. A purple silk glove brushed against Sun Yan's soft cheek. She suddenly noticed a speck of dirt on her daughter's nose and couldn't help but laugh, a few shallow lines appearing at the corners of her eyes, like cracks in ice, revealing a hint of sweetness. You've turned into a little kitten. Su Ming stared, somewhat stunned. He had never seen Lin Ruoxue like this at the company. Those moments of voluptuous beauty encased in suits, those moments of cold, innocent gazes in the conference room, all transformed into tenderness under the great trellis. She reached up and tucked a stray strand of Sun Yan's hair behind her ear. The sleeve of her linen dress slipped down, revealing her soft, fair wrist. The bracelet clinked against the great trellis. Daddy, come quick. There are huge strawberries here. Su Zhe shouted, holding up a bright red strawberry, mud splattering onto his white t-shirt. Su Ming ran over, crouching among the strawberries, but his gaze kept drifting towards the great trellis. Lin Ruoxue was tiptoeing, picking green grapes high up on the field. The belt of her cotton linen skirt accentuated her slender waist, her soft flesh bulging out shallow folds on either side, leading down to her plump buttocks. The fullness of her hips stretched the skirt taut, creating a deep, graceful arc as she tiptoed. His heart pounded like a rabbit's. What are you peeking at? Lin Ruoxue suddenly turned her head, a mischievous glint in her autumn eyes. Su Ming hurriedly lowered his head, pretending to examine the strawberries, but his ears turned bright red, like tomatoes baked in the sun. The beautiful woman chuckled softly, waving a green grape in her purple silk glove at him. If you slack off again, you won't get any tonight. The children chased each other along the field ridge, Su Ya's laughter as clear and melodious as silver bells. Su Ming picked the largest strawberry, red as fire, its surface still glistening with morning dew. He crept up behind Lin Ruoxue and, taking advantage of her looking down to tidy her bamboo basket, shoved a strawberry into her mouth. Lin Ruoxue was caught off guard, her soft lips slightly pursed by the strawberry. She whirled around, her autumn eyes wide, her eyelashes fluttering like tiny fans, looking exactly like an enraged Persian cat. But as the sweetness of the strawberry melted on her tongue, her anger vanished instantly. A blush crept onto her fair face, spreading from her ears like snow-covered peach blossoms. Su Ming, she mumbled, raising her hand to hit him, but he grabbed her wrist. The skin beneath the purple silk glove was warm and smooth. He could clearly feel her pulse beating, like a throbbing in his heart. Let go. Her voice softened, tinged with a barely perceptible shyness. Su Ming obediently released her hand, watching her bite into the strawberry. He suddenly realized the strawberry must be very sweet, but not as sweet as her expression at that moment. Lin Ruoxue swallowed the strawberry, her full, soft lips curving into a gentle smile. You're smart. But as she turned away, she couldn't help but secretly smile, her momentary naivete like a small animal leaping from an iceberg. The children had run far away, leaving only the two of them on the ridge. Sunlight streamed down, casting long shadows. Su Ming's bamboo basket was piled high with strawberries, dazzlingly red. Lin Ruoxue's basket held green grapes and cherry tomatoes, refreshingly green. They stood side by side, neither speaking, yet they could hear each other's breathing, mingling with the rustling of the grape leaves in the wind. The children seemed to have run over there. Lin Ruoxue spoke first, but her gaze didn't turn towards the children. Her fingers traced the edge of the bamboo basket, her purple silk gloves brushing against the bamboo weave, a hint of unconscious panic in her voice. Su Ming responded, his fingers also moving closer to the edge of the basket. Just as their fingertips were about to touch, Lin Ruoxue suddenly recoiled as if burned, turning to leave, but tripping over a ridge in the paddy field. Careful. Su Ming swiftly caught her waist. Beneath her cotton linen skirt, her slender waist was bound like a ribbon, the soft flesh trembling slightly with her movements, the fine marks from the binding tinged with pink. His palm rested on her waist and abdomen, feeling her stiffness and the warmth emanating from the fabric. Lin Ruoxue's body instantly froze. As a male to female soul, she was always sensitive to such sudden contact. But now, with Su Ming's palm against her, the heat surged through her body like an electric current, making her inexplicably panicked. She could clearly feel the calluses on his fingertips, a strange, ticklish sensation as they brushed against the cotton fabric. Thank you. Her voice trembled slightly, her usual assertiveness completely gone. She turned her face away, unable to look at Su Ming, the blush on her jade-like face deepening, even her neck turning pink. This demure, womanly appearance was unfamiliar even to herself. Su Ming was stunned. He had never seen Lin Ruoxue like this before. Gone was the sharpness of her business dealings. Gone was the cunning she used when teasing him. Now she was like a frightened fawn, her eyes reddening, her lips slightly pouting, carrying a touch of childlike arrogance. He suddenly felt his heart skip a beat, softening completely. You're welcome. His voice was extremely soft, but his hand holding her steadied even more. He liked seeing her like this, like the contrast she revealed for him. It made him feel that the distance between them had shortened another step. Lin Ruoxue slowly straightened up, shaking off his support, but didn't leave immediately. She looked down at her bamboo basket, the bloom on the green grapes glistening in the sunlight. The strawberries are quite sweet, she said abruptly, her voice barely audible. Su Ming couldn't help but laugh. Shall I pick some more for you? No need. Lin Ruoxue suddenly looked up, a hint of fierceness flashing in her autumn eyes, but it quickly softened. The children should be back soon. Let's go find them. As she spoke, she took the lead, the hem of her cotton linen skirt brushing against the grass, leaving a faint fragrance. Su Ming followed behind her, watching her walk, the curve of her snow-white hips peeking out from under her skirt, each step feeling like stepping on the heart's tip. He suddenly felt that this weekend had been absolutely worthwhile. When he found the children, they were gathered in front of the farm's small wooden cabin, watching the old farmer feed the rabbits. Sun Yan, holding a leaf of lettuce, stood on tiptoe to feed the largest rabbit, but was startled by its long ears and jumped into Lin Ruoxue's arms. Mommy, hug me. Her daughter's soft voice melted Lin Ruoxue instantly. She stiffly raised her arms to hug her, her ample breasts swaying slightly from the impact, saying, coward, but her voice was as soft as cotton candy. Su Ming stood by, watching, finding the scene more moving than any landscape. It's time to go home. Su Ming looked at the sky. The setting sun was already painting the horizon red. The children reluctantly said goodbye to the rabbits. Suze even secretly slipped a strawberry into the rabbit cage, earning him a chuckle and a gentle ruffled hair from the old farmer. On the way back, the children quickly fell asleep. Sun Yan's little head rested on Lin Ruoxue's shoulder, her drool dampening her cotton linen dress. Lin Ruoxue remained stiff, afraid of waking her daughter. The cold depths of her autumn eyes softened, even her full, soft lips curved into a gentle smile. Su Ming watched this scene in the rearview mirror and suddenly felt a warmth in his heart. He quietly slowed down, wanting this tender moment to last a little longer. When the car stopped in front of the villa, the setting sun cast a golden glow on Lin Ruoxue's profile, gilding her pale skin. She carefully lifted Sun Yan out of the car, her movements as gentle as if she were holding a fragile treasure. Su Ming followed behind, carrying a heavy bamboo basket filled with the day's harvest, brimming with happiness. Let's make strawberry jam tonight, Lin Ruoxue suddenly said, carrying Sun Yan into the house, the hem of her cotton linen dress sweeping across the steps. The children will definitely love it. Okay, Su Ming replied with a smile, quickly following her. He stepped forward and gently embraced her from behind, his chin resting on the top of her head, inhaling the scent of grass and sunshine in her hair. Lin Ruoxue's body stiffened slightly, but she didn't push him away. Instead, she instinctively snuggled closer to him, her hips rubbing against his lower abdomen, her hair brushing against his chin as she turned her head. The strawberries are going to rot, she said, her voice muffled, tinged with a barely perceptible shyness. Then hurry up and make them, Su Ming said with a smile, releasing her and taking the strawberries from her hand. I'll cut them, you cook them. Lin Ruoxue snorted, turning around with her hands on her hips. The belt of her robe accentuated her slender waist, making her hips sway even more dramatically. She said, don't be clumsy and make things worse. But her eyes gleamed with laughter, like a Persian cat with its fur standing on end, a sweetness hidden beneath its aloof exterior. The sweet aroma in the kitchen grew stronger, mingling with the laughter of the two and the occasional murmurs of the children as they woke up. Watching Lin Ruoxue stir the strawberry jam, Su Ming suddenly felt that their story was like this pot of strawberry jam, slowly simmering in ordinary days, growing sweeter and richer with each passing day. And that once unapproachable, icy beauty was now standing beside him, filling every corner of his life with her gentleness and contrast, like a piece of candy melting on his tongue, sweetening his heart. Night fell like a deep blue velvet blanket over the villa. The crystal chandelier in the living room was dimmed to its softest setting, its warm yellow light spilling onto the spread rice paper, creating hazy halos. Su Ming squatted on the floor, the sleeves of his sky blue loungewear rolled up to his elbows, a mixed hair brush in his hand, drawing a forest from a picture book for the children. Look at this little rabbit. Its ears need to be drawn long to be cute. His brush moved swiftly across the paper, the ink spreading in lines with a clumsy yet gentle grace. Lin Ruoxue sat in a wicker chair beside him, wearing a smoky gray silk shirt, the top two buttons undone, revealing her delicate collarbone, perfectly recessed. Her cuffs, embroidered with silver gray bamboo leaf patterns, were casually rolled up to her forearms, revealing her fair wrist wrapped in purple silk. A speck of ink stained her fingertips like a black pearl. She held a fountain pen, head bowed, transcribing story text on a tracing paper. Her profile was porcelain white, her brows like snow-capped mountains, her autumn eyes half closed, the pupils holding unfrozen pools of cold water. The soft mounds at the corners of her eyes revealed a mature woman's gentleness, a stark contrast to her usual sharp demeanor at the office. 6 children sat around the rice paper, their faces smeared with ink, like a group of kittens who had just played with the inkstone. Suze lay on the paper, drawing a green dinosaur with crayons, its tail longer than its body, making Suya cover her mouth and laugh. Brother's drawing isn't a dinosaur at all. It looks like a big green caterpillar. No, it's not. Suze slammed the crayons down on the paper, his eyes reddening. Lin Ruoxue put down her pen and stood up. The hem of her charcoal gray shirt brushed lightly against the wicker chair, revealing the curve of her snow-white buttocks. Her flesh was dazzlingly white, perfectly encased in the shirt, swaying with a deep, graceful curve as she moved. She reached out and pulled the 2 children into her arms. Her ample breasts trembled slightly, like snowflakes gently swaying, the firm curves of her breasts faintly visible beneath her shirt. Look, she laughed, pointing to the dinosaur on the drawing paper, her voice as soft as cotton candy. This is a flying dinosaur. It has wings. Su Ming stared, somewhat stunned. He had never seen Lin Ruoxue like this before. Those moments of voluptuous beauty encased in suits, those moments of cold, innocent eyes in the conference room, all transformed into tenderness under the lamplight. As she lowered her head, strands of hair fell beside her cheek, the ends carrying a hint of ink. Her purple silk gloves gently stroked Suze's back, the movement carrying the unique gentleness of a mature woman. Daddy, come quickly and draw the dinosaur's wings, Sun Yan shouted, holding up a red crayon, pulling him back from his reverie. Su Ming responded and walked over, deliberately slowing his pace as he passed Lin Ruoxue. Her hair was slightly disheveled by the night breeze, a few strands clinging behind her ears. He reached out to tuck them behind her ears, but his fingertips accidentally brushed against her earlobe. Lin Ruoxue's body trembled slightly, as if gently brushed by a feather. Su Ming's fingertips, cool with a hint of ink, brushed against her fair, full skin, the touch as delicate as silk. He suddenly noticed a speck of ink on the tip of her ear, glossy black, making her skin appear even whiter, like a kitten that had secretly drunk ink, so adorable it made his heart itch. Don't move. Su Ming's voice was extremely soft as he took a handkerchief from his pocket and carefully wiped the ink stain from her earlobe. His fingertips intentionally or unintentionally brushed against her earlobe, feeling her body tense instantly, and a slight tremor transmitted through her purple silk gloves. What are you doing? Lin Ruoxue's voice carried a hint of barely perceptible panic, and ripples appeared in the cold pool of her autumn eyes. She instinctively tried to pull away, but Su Ming pressed her shoulder down. His palm was against her shoulder, feeling the stiffness of the muscles beneath her shirt, and the warmth transmitted through the fabric. There's ink. Su Ming smiled and released her hand, his fingertips still retaining the warmth of her skin. Lin Ruoxue turned her face away, her jade-like face flushed with a rosy blush, a pink hue spreading from her ears like snow-covered peach blossoms. Her full, soft lips pursed, but she said nothing more. As she turned and sat back in the wicker chair, her steps were slightly hurried, as if startled by her own reaction. The children's interest grew even greater. Su Yu drew a crooked, large tree, and Su Chan added a small bird beside it, but the bird's beak looked like an eagle's. Lin Ruoxue patiently helped them correct it, her purple silk gloves holding a fountain pen as she lightly sketched on the paper, instantly transforming the clumsy lines into lively strokes. Her movements were slow, carrying a composed elegance. The cuffs of her smoky gray shirt swayed gently with her movements, spreading more ink, but it seemed like deliberate embellishments, adding a touch of charm. Su Ming sat opposite her, pretending to be seriously drawing a tiger, but his eyes kept drifting towards her out of the corner of his eye. The lamplight cast soft shadows on her eyelashes, like two small fans gently trembling. Occasionally, she would bite the cap of her pen in thought, her full, soft lips slightly pouting, a childlike earnestness in her expression, a stark contrast to the aloof head referee she usually was. He suddenly felt that this moment under the lamplight was more moving than any lavish banquet. Mommy's moon drawing is so beautiful, Sun Yan exclaimed, pointing to the moon Lin Ruoxue had just drawn. The crescent moon was rendered with light ink, its edges shimmering with a hazy glow, like a thin mist. Lin Ruoxue looked up at the sound of her voice, the cold depths of her autumn eyes softening into gentle water, a tender smile curving her lips. I'll tell you stories about the moon later. As night deepened, the children finally succumbed to sleepiness, falling asleep one by one beside the rice paper. Su Ming gently carried them back to the room. When he returned, he found Lin Ruoxue tidying up her scattered paintbrushes. A few ink stains stained the hem of her smoky gray shirt, resembling a freehanding painting. Let me do it. He walked over and took the pen holder from her hand. His fingertips accidentally brushed against the back of her hand, and both of them recoiled as if jolted by an electric shock. No need. Lin Ruoxue's voice trembled slightly. She turned to leave, but tripped over the rice paper on the floor. Su Ming swiftly caught her waist. Her waist was slender and delicate, the soft flesh trembling slightly with her movements, the fine marks left by the binding tinged with pink. His palm rested on her waist and abdomen, clearly feeling the stiffness of her body and the warmth emanating from her shirt, like holding a small furnace. Be careful. Su Ming's voice was extremely soft. He helped her to her feet before releasing her. Lin Ruoxue lowered her head, the blush on her jade-like face deepening, even her neck turning pink, as if dyed by the sunset. Thank you. Her voice was barely audible, like a mosquito's hum. She turned with a slightly hurried step, the hem of her charcoal gray shirt brushing against his calf, leaving a faint scent of ink. Watching her retreating figure, Su Ming suddenly felt a warmth in his heart. He bent down to organize his drawings. The edges of the rice paper were slightly curled, covered with children's childish scribbles and delicate lines added by Lin Ruoxue. A chaotic yet heartwarming jigsaw puzzle. When he turned to the last page, he suddenly froze. It was a drawing carefully tucked away at the back, depicting two little figures holding hands. The man wore a sky blue shirt, the woman a charcoal gray shirt, and 6 tiny children crouched beside them, each holding a paintbrush. The lines were simple, yet full of love. It was clearly Lin Ruoxue's work. Su Ming's heart suddenly skipped a beat, softening completely, and his eyes welled up with tears. He looked up towards the bedroom. Lin Ruoxue's figure had already disappeared behind the door, leaving only the faint scent of ink in the air. Su Ming carefully folded the drawing paper and placed it in the sketchbook, as if holding the tenderness of the whole world in his hands. He suddenly felt that their story, like this hand-drawn picture book, lacked ornate language, yet held the most touching sweetness hidden in ordinary moments. Back in the bedroom, Lin Ruoxue was already lying on the bed, her back to him. She had changed from her smoky gray shirt into a matching silk robe, the collar embroidered with silver gray bamboo leaf patterns, looking both elegant and aloof. The silk was as thin as a layer of mist, clinging tightly to her body, making her full breasts appear rounded, the curves pressing against the front of the robe, yet never quite revealing, remaining just right, inviting allure. Su Ming gently lay down beside her, not daring to get too close, afraid of waking her. Moonlight streamed through the gaps in the curtains, falling on her profile and casting a silvery glow on her pale skin. Her breathing was even and long, like a gentle nocturne. Still not asleep, Lin Ruoxue suddenly turned around, her autumn eyes shimmering with a hint of moisture. Su Ming was startled and hurriedly closed his eyes, only to have her gently poke his cheek. What were you peeking at? Her voice was sleepy, yet held a subtle tenderness. And nothing. Su Ming's earlobes turned red, like tomatoes ripened by the moonlight. Lin Ruoxue suddenly smiled, a few shallow lines appearing at the corners of her eyes, like cracks in ice, revealing a hint of sweetness. I saw the sketch. Her voice was soft. It's not very good. It's beautiful. Su Ming blurted out, only realizing his excitement afterward. His cheeks flushed even more. A mischievous glint flashed in Lin Ruoxue's eyes as she reached out and pinched his cheek. You have good taste. Her fingertips, slightly cool, brushed against his skin like a feather. Su Ming's heart skipped a beat. He mustered his courage and took her hand. Her purple silk gloves had already been removed. Her fingertips were slightly cool and carried a faint scent of ink. Lin Ruoxue's body stiffened slightly, but she didn't pull her hand away. Instead, she let him hold it, the cold depths of her autumn eyes softening into gentle water. Good night. Su Ming's voice trembled slightly, yet remained unusually firm. Lin Ruoxue didn't speak, only softly humming in agreement, the smile at the corner of her eye like a melting candy, sweetening his heart. The moonlight outside the window grew brighter, casting soft dappled patterns on their clasped hands through the gaps in the curtains. Looking at Lin Ruoxue's sleeping profile, Su Ming suddenly realized that happiness was probably just like this: a lamp, a painting, and someone willing to stay up late to finish a picture book with you. And that once unapproachable, icy beauty was now lying beside him, filling every corner of his life with her gentleness and contrast, like a piece of candy melting on his tongue, sweetening his heart. Their story continued, blossoming with the sweetest flowers in every ordinary yet heartwarming day.